Chapter 23:16. After Zhao Fu discussed with his ministers, they decided to change their original plan of peaceful development and adopt a strategy of attacking the outside world to develop Qin as quickly as possible. There were still a few months before Qin's Kingdom of Heaven's protection ended. Zhao Fu wanted to remove the Kingdom of Heaven's protection and attack the outside world. The Heaven Realm's Pantheon Palace continuously subdued godly spirits and became stronger. The Pantheon Palace was already the largest faction there, and no one was a match for it. Adding on the Pantheon Palace's Pantheon attribute, it attracted many godly spirits to join. The Yellow Springs Kingdom was also developing rapidly, continuously attacking other factions, and it was the most powerful faction in that region. The alchemy world and the outer world did not have any problems either. This was especially so for the arrogant and domineering alchemy world. After being beaten up by Qin, they became very obedient. It was not that Qin was worried about them, but they were worried about Qin and were building all sorts of defensive structures. Right now, only the human world's matters had not come to an end. Qin had the greatest enmity with them, and it could be said that they had hated each other for a long time. They had always wanted to destroy Qin, and Qin had always wanted to destroy them. Adding on the fact that Qin needed to develop quickly, Zhao Fu had decided to end the Kingdom of Heaven's protection early. It was a pity that the Kingdom of Heaven's protection still had a few months left. It was a barrier that could defend against countless armies, and it was something that Zhao Fu had obtained with great difficulty. After making this decision, Qin's army started to gather, and their aura was like a flood that could destroy everything. The Fire Country and Devil Horn Army, who had always wanted to attack Qin, had serious expressions on their faces. The terrifying ripples from the Three Realms formation caused countless people to fall into icy water. Their bodies violently trembled, and they felt extreme fear and despair. Qin had been hiding within the barrier for a long time and had not made any noise at all. However, he had suddenly given off such terrifying ripples. Just what had Qin been doing these past few days? Everyone had a feeling that it was definitely something terrifying. The espers could sense how terrifying Qin was. The current Qin was completely different from the previous Qin. The original fate signs were like 9 ferocious and domineering black dragons bearing their fangs and claws, making people feel extremely terrified and not daring to get close. Now, Qin was like a giant ball. Although he was not as ferocious and terrible as before, he gave off an extremely terrifying sense of oppression. He was like a grain of sand in the vast ocean, powerless and suffocating. This power was several dozen times more powerful than the 9 black dragons, and it seemed to be nurturing some ultimate existence. Many people hurriedly persuaded the lords, "My lord, Great Qin's fate sign is an extreme sign, and even though we don't know what's going on, we can be sure that Great Qin has gone through shocking changes. It's still not too late for us to leave now. If we're late, we'll all be wiped out. Right now, Qin Xiang is invincible. It's better to go back and wait for things to change." In order to attack Qin, the Devil Horn Empire and Fire Kingdom had roped in many feudal lords. All the lords knew how terrible Qin was, and they sensed that Qin was emitting such a terrible wave. Now they were also frightened by what the strange man said. "I think it's best that we don't participate in this matter. Qin is not someone we can afford to offend. Let's go back and wait." Don't listen to the Devil Horn Empire and Fire Kingdom's lies and don't be tempted by them. Let them deal with their own matters. That's right. Let them attack each other and exhaust each other. Either way, I don't dare to stay here. Even if you don't leave, I'll leave. I'll also leave. Even if you stop me, I'll still leave. Just hearing about that ultimate fate sign is enough to scare people. You're dreaming. Do you think that if you run, Qin won't attack? Right now, it's not a matter of them exhausting each other, but whether or not the Devil Horn Empire can stop Qin. That's right. Everyone knows about Qin's wild ambitions. If they can't stop Qin, we'll be the ones to suffer. Then what should we do? If we don't leave, we'll die. If we leave, we'll die. It's so complicated. I think you're just scared. What's there to be scared of about Qin? If Qin is so terrifying, why is he being forced into hiding by the two factions? That's right. Now that Qin hasn't even appeared and you're scared, do you still have the guts? A bunch of cowards. What's there to be scared of? Even if I die, I'll die standing. I won't live kneeling. I don't care anymore. Whether you live or die has nothing to do with me. I choose to leave. No one can stop me. I'm also leaving. Even if Qin defeats the two factions, it will still take some time for him to attack us. So what if I'm scared of dying? Fudge. If you want to scram, then scram. Don't disturb our morale. Your elder wants to see just how terrifying Qin is. When the time comes, we'll divide up Qin. Don't come running over like dogs. The factions were now split into two factions. One chose to stay and the other chose to leave. After hearing about this, Yao Ming and Li Baiqing's expressions became quite unsightly. In order to win over so many people, they had paid a great price. They had agreed to some requests, some had agreed to cede land, and some had given precious treasures. After paying so much, they had come to see if they could break the ward and kill Qin. Now their lifelong pursuit was to kill Qin, and all their goals were to kill Qin. However, now that Qin had burst out such a terrifying wave, they had lost their confidence. In addition, with so many people leaving, they were even less confident. What should they do next? They were all hesitant. At this time, a skinny old man with a magic staff in his hand said seriously, "Now, Qin's fate pattern is indeed the ultimate one. It's the first time I've seen such a terrifying fate pattern. However, everything is not clear now, so it's better not to make a decision. Moreover, the ward is very powerful and can last for a few more months. Qin won't come out so soon. During this period, the two lords should figure out how to deal with Qin and find out what happened to Qin." Hearing this, Yao Ming and Li Baiqing nodded. Qin hadn't come out yet, so there was still some time. There was no need for them to panic. More importantly, it was just the terrifying fate pattern. It didn't mean that Qin's strength had increased by much. They might still have a great advantage. If they could kill Qin and absorb this ultimate fate pattern, they would also have this fate pattern. Now they had another reason to kill Qin. They didn't know what was going on with Qin. He could always cause changes in heaven and earth, and every time, it was different. He had many opportunities. Although they didn't want to admit it, they really admired Zhao Fu. He was their greatest enemy. Then, they decided not to retreat or attack. They would build a defensive wall around Qin and see what happened first. Chapter 23:17. At the same time, they continued to search for a way to break the barrier. This barrier was too disgusting, and no matter what they tried, they could not break it. Qin was right in front of them, but they could not do anything to Qin. This was quite infuriating. Only by breaking the barrier would they be able to regain the initiative. When the leaders of the remaining factions heard this, they nodded in agreement. This is the best method. We don't fear Qin too much or look down on Qin. This way, even if Qin becomes very terrifying, we will at least be able to retaliate. We won't be completely defenseless. Right now, I just want to break the barrier and see how strong Qin is. I want to see how those cowards who ran away will perform in the future. Don't be too arrogant, but I like it. If Qin cancels the barrier, do you have the guts to charge at the front? Why wouldn't I dare? However, my faction is not as strong as the Devil Horn Kingdom or the Fire Kingdom, so I won't charge in front of them. However, it won't be a problem for me to charge in front of you. You said that. Don't wait for Qin to come out. Otherwise, your faction will be the first to run. Ha ha, do you think I'm that kind of person? Also, there are still a few months before the barrier disappears. Qin will definitely hide inside and develop. You're quite smart. You know that Qin won't come out, so you're putting on an act here. Ha ha ha, I'm not really putting on an act. When Qin comes out, I guarantee that I'll be at the front and be even faster than the two devil horn factions. I say you're becoming more and more pretentious. Just now, you said that you were behind the two factions, and now you dare to say that you're in front of them? That's right. Don't be too pretentious, or else it'll be even more embarrassing. I already said that I'm not putting on an act. If Qin comes out, just wait and see. I'll definitely be the first to charge. Of course, that's only if. If he doesn't appear, then there's nothing I can do. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a massive aura exploded out, causing everyone to feel shocked. The barrier in front of them was undergoing a shocking change. The Kingdom of Heaven image was disappearing, and the buildings and soldiers all disappeared. The power of Kingdom of Heaven's protection was weakening. Everyone widened their eyes, finding this a bit hard to believe. Heavenly Country's barrier was disappearing? The power of Kingdom of Heaven's protection continued to weaken and the enchantment was disappearing. Everyone was finally sure that Kingdom of Heaven's protection enchantment was disappearing. But how could the Kingdom of Heaven's protective enchantment disappear? Wasn't it going to take a few months? How could he be so fast? Everyone suddenly had a bad feeling that Qin was about to come out. Thinking of this, everyone felt nervous, afraid, and a hint of anticipation. After such a long time, what did Qin look like now? And what was the reason for Qin's fluctuation just now? Everything would be revealed soon. The barrier completely disappeared, and groups of Qin soldiers wearing black armor and holding all sorts of weapons appeared on the ground. They had cold expressions and gave off powerful auras. It was like a black ocean that could destroy everything. No one could resist it. Behind them, there were also huge metal creatures that were thousands of meters tall. There were all kinds of them, including turtles, lions, tigers, crocodiles. Their bodies were all made of metal, and even though they looked different, there were cannons on their bodies that gave off cold light and destructive auras. There were also mechanical wyverns and some mechanical birds flying in the sky. Their massive bodies covered the sky, and they gave off a massive might that covered the sky. Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes widened. Sensing this massive power, they felt as if they had fallen into icy water, and a wave of terror flowed out of their hearts. Was this Qin's current strength? The Qin soldiers gave off auras that rivaled Stage 2 soldiers, and they gave off a metallic sharpness that could cause people's hairs to stand on end. Were these still the Qin soldiers from before? Before, Qin soldiers were incredibly cruel and cold-blooded, and they were like killing machines. Now they were like icy machines. The key thing was not just a single soldier but an ocean of soldiers. This was not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was the war god beast. How could Qin have gold refinement god beast? Moreover, there were so many of them, this was almost impossible. First of all, the Heaven Awakened World's factions were being suppressed by the gold refinement world and were in a relatively weak position, making it impossible for them to defeat the gold refinement god families. If one wanted to obtain gold refinement god beasts, they first had to destroy the gold refinement god families. If they could not even destroy the gold refinement god families, how could they obtain gold refinement god beasts? Moreover, the gold refinement god beasts could only be controlled by people from the gold refinement god families. Because they belonged to different worlds, the Heaven Awakened World's people could only destroy the gold refinement god family's legacies and could not occupy them. This made it so that the Heaven Awakened World could not control the gold refinement god families. Of course, there was another method, which was to make the families submit without occupying the legacies. However, that would be incredibly dangerous. It was evident that Qin had chosen the second method. Now that there were so many gold refinement god families, how many families would he subdue? Was Qin not afraid of death? Or was the despicable Qin working together with the gold refinement god families to harm them? However, this was not too likely. The Heaven Awakened World's consciousness had clearly stated that anyone who worked with the gold refinement world would be killed. If Qin dared to openly work with the gold refinement world, wasn't that just seeking death? However, no one could understand why Qin had so many gold refinement god beasts. However, they had fought with the gold refinement world before and knew how terrifying these gold refinement god beasts were. Facing such terrifying gold refinement god beasts and countless Qin soldiers, countless people felt despair. Yao Ming and Li Baiqing's expressions were quite unsightly. Damn it! Everyone, retreat! The person at the front immediately gave the order to retreat. This was evidently a battle that they would definitely lose, and anyone who stayed behind would be idiots. Everyone else's expressions were quite unsightly, and they also gave the order to retreat. They understood the current situation. When the retreating army saw the soldiers running away like mad dogs, their expressions became blank, not knowing what was going on. What's wrong? Weren't you supposed to defend against Qin? Why are you running away in fear? Qin released the barrier and charged out. It's too terrifying. I've never seen such a terrifying army before. Also, Qin has gold refinement god beasts. Anyone who stays there will definitely die. Fudge! Why didn't you say so earlier? Your elder knew that Qin was terrifying. I told you to run from the start, but you were still acting cool. Now, do you know how to be afraid? Don't waste words. Hurry up and run. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape even if you want to. Chapter 23:18. Alright. We'll leave immediately. That's right, where's the most pretentious person? Did he rush up first? What happened to him? Don't even mention it. He ran faster than a rabbit and is already in front of us. He acted so pretentiously just then, and now he's been slapped in the face. Fudge! He's already in front of us. Let's hurry and run. The various armies hurriedly ran, leaving behind the Devil Horn Empire's and Fire Kingdom's armies. It was not that they did not want to retreat, but that Qin's gaze had been on them from the very beginning. Once they chose to retreat, Qin would immediately chase after them. When that time came, they would be at a great disadvantage. Without a formation, they would not be able to defend or attack, and it would be a massacre. Now that the Devil Horn Empire's and Fire Kingdom's armies had formed a defensive formation, they could only try to see if they could defend. Zhao Fu stood at the front of Qin's army and looked at Yao Ming and Li Baiqing as he smiled and said, "Long time no see. You're still so weak." Yao Ming and Li Baiqing's faces became even more terrifyingly pale. Right now, Zhao Fu felt incredibly different from the Zhao Fu from before, as if he was a completely different person. This was especially so because they could sense an aura of the source of all things from Zhao Fu's body. Under this kind of aura, they all felt a sense of inferiority and insignificance. What was going on? How had Zhao Fu become so terrifying? Right now, the two of them were quite afraid of Zhao Fu and understood that they were not a match for Zhao Fu. The difference between them and Zhao Fu was like the difference between the heavens and the earth. However, even so, they would not admit defeat. Yao Ming said coldly, "Boy, don't be too arrogant. Back then, who was forced to hide in a barrier? If it wasn't for that barrier, we would have long since destroyed you." Zhao Fu lightly laughed. "You're underestimating Qin and me too much. Do you think you can destroy Qin like that? Keep dreaming." Li Baiqing looked at Zhao Fu without saying anything. Zhao Fu smiled and said, "It's a pity that the Fiery Kingdom has a scourge like you. Since you've become Qin's enemy, I'll destroy the Fiery Kingdom. I'm looking forward to the taste of your mother-in-law and wife. You deserve to die. How dare you insult the princess and empress?" A muscular flame general angrily shouted, looking like he wanted to kill Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu said with a light smile, "I'm not insulting you, I'll really do it. You can go back and tell them that all of your concubines in the palace can be washed clean for me to enjoy." The flame general was so angry that his face became red. Just as he was about to say something, Li Baiqing spoke first. "You're an animal. My mother is your stepmother, and my wife is your sister-in-law. Not only did you violate them, but you also want to insult my wife and mother-in-law." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I never said that I was your big brother, nor did I acknowledge that identity. There's no point in using this against me. That's right, your father and grandfather are currently in prison, and they miss you a lot. How about you come back with me to properly meet them and have a good reunion with your family?" Li Baiqing angrily said, "Don't give me that. Right now, Qin is very powerful, but you dare to say such words? I'll report this matter to the Fiery Kingdom. When the Fiery Kingdom's true army arrives, I'll personally save them." Zhao Fu loudly laughed. "Do you think that Qin is afraid of him? I won't waste any more words. Everyone, listen to my orders and attack." Boom! Boom! As Zhao Fu gave the order, the mechanical wyverns in the sky opened their mouths and shot out massive beams of light that contained immense power. They shot forwards, seeming as if they wanted to destroy the sky. Boom! 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 The war saint beasts on the ground pointed their cannons forwards, and beams of light containing immense power shot out. They seemed to be able to pierce through everything as they shot forwards, bringing with them massive gales. Facing so many terrifying attacks, the Fiery Kingdom's army and Devil Horn army immediately gave off different colored auras, forming two massive defensive barriers that covered the entire army. Bang! 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 Massive sounds sounded out as the beams of light smashed against the defensive barriers. Countless rays of light shot out, illuminating the surroundings, and terrifying shockwaves spread out like a flood. When everything dissipated, they saw that the two defensive barriers had been blasted into a very large gap. Below the gap, there were many large holes. Many of them were broken corpses and chunks of flesh. Blood had already dyed the ground red. This wave of attacks had killed at least millions of people, and if it wasn't for the powerful defensive barriers blocking most of the power, who knew how many people would have died? Kill! Countless Qin soldiers were like a black flood, giving off terrifying auras as they charged forwards, and it was impossible to stop them. Seeing the Qin soldiers ferociously charging at them, the Devil Horn and Fiery Kingdom soldiers looked somewhat afraid. Swish, 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 the Devil Horn army shot out sharp arrows that drew out arcs in the air, giving off sharp auras as they descended like a torrential rain. On the Qin side, the Devil Horn army gave off massive black aura flames that covered the army and blocked all of the arrows. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out, shaking the surroundings. The black flood ferociously smashed against the Devil Horn army, and the soldiers on both sides started to fight. Yao Ming immediately said, "Li Baiqing, my army will be the main force to stall Qin's army. Your army is stronger and will attack Qin's army from two sides and cut off Qin's army." Li Baiqing nodded. Fiery Kingdom soldiers were Stage 2 soldiers, and they were very useful against Stage 1 soldiers. Even though Great Qin soldiers looked quite terrifying and could rival Stage 2 soldiers, they had the advantage in numbers and were not at a complete disadvantage. The two sides quickly obeyed their orders, and the Devil Horn army blocked Qin's army from the front while the Fiery Kingdom's soldiers attacked from the sides. Boom! 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 At that moment, the Qin soldiers gave off waves of green aura flames, giving off a metallic aura, and their skin seemed to become metallic. Li Baiqing and the Devil Horn army felt quite startled. Sensing this aura, they could not believe it. Arg! Pained cries continuously sounded out as blood flew everywhere. People fell, and a dense stench of blood spread out. The scene was incredibly chaotic, and both sides started to fight intensely. Qin's soldiers had a great advantage in this battle. A Qin soldier holding a saber sent alchemy power into his saber, causing it to give off a sharp saber chi. He vigorously slashed out, and an extremely sharp saber light split a Fiery Kingdom soldier in half. Chapter 23:19. A Qin soldier held a spear and sent a wave of alchemy power into it. The spear gave off a sharp aura as it vigorously stabbed forwards, easily piercing through a devil horn soldier's body. One of the flame soldiers exploded out with a powerful fiery aura as he gripped his large sword and vigorously slashed out, sending a great Qin soldier flying and creating a lot of sparks. A devil horn soldier's expression was savage as he held a spear and gave off a powerful aura as he desperately rushed forwards. The spear pierced through the Qin soldier's chest, but the Qin soldier did not immediately die. He waved his hand, and a cold light flashed as a head fell to the ground. That's alchemy power. Yao Ming and Li Baiqing looked at this scene in shock. They had never thought that not only did Qin control god beasts, but he also had alchemy power. How could Qin control all of this? The Devil Horn Empire and Fire Kingdom had more people, but they were unable to stop Qin's soldiers. The ordinary Devil Horn soldiers were not a match for Qin's soldiers at all, and the Stage 2 Flame Horn soldiers did not have much of an advantage. If this went on, they would definitely lose. Roar, roar, roar. Massive roars sounded out as massive lizard-like flame beasts and various devil beasts gave off powerful auras as they rushed out, as if nothing could stop them. Yao Ming and the Fire Kingdom wanted to use the flame beasts and devil beasts to stop Qin's attack. Boom! Boom! The war god beasts' cannons and mechanical dragons shot out massive beams of light at the devil beasts, giving off terrifying power as they shot forwards, causing people to feel terror. The devil beasts sensed how terrifying this power was and gave off boundless devil chi, forming defensive barriers to protect themselves. Bang! 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 Massive explosions sounded out as the countless beams of light hit the devil beasts, resulting in massive explosions. White light once again covered the surroundings, making it impossible to see anything, but terrifying ripples spread out. The shockwaves once again spread out and some of the demon beasts were directly blasted into pieces. Some of the demon beasts had large holes pierced through their bodies and some of the demon beasts suffered serious injuries. This wave of attacks dealt great damage to the devil beasts and flame beasts. There was a big gap between the Heaven Awaken world's massive beasts and the Alchemy world's saint beasts, which was why the Alchemy world's saint beasts were a big advantage. When fighting against the Alchemy world, Zhao Fu didn't dare to directly use the Qin behemoth to fight against the Alchemy holy beasts because of this reason. Yao Ming and Li Baiqing's faces turned even uglier when they saw that the demonic beasts had suffered heavy losses. Roar, loud roars followed, and Qin beasts appeared one after another. There were huge spiders, huge gray wolves, giants that were hundreds of meters tall, and even larger sea beasts. Countless massive beasts rushed out, and their ferocious auras were even more terrifying than the Devil Horn armies. Countless people felt as if they had fallen into icy water, and their bodies could not help but tremble. Kill! The Qin soldiers' confidence was greatly boosted, and they loudly roared as they charged at the Devil Horn Empire and Fire Kingdom soldiers. The battle became even more intense, and blood continuously flew everywhere as more and more people died. Yao Ming and Li Baiqing understood that they had lost this time. If they did not retreat, there would be countless casualties, and it was even possible that they would be completely annihilated. Everyone, retreat! Yao Ming and Li Baiqing looked furious and gritted their teeth, unwilling to give this order. The Devil Horn soldiers and Fire Kingdom soldiers felt as if they had been granted amnesty and let out sighs of relief. Facing such terrifying Qin soldiers, they felt quite afraid. They were not a group of people but a group of cold killing machines. The Devil Horn Empire and Fire Kingdom soldiers started to retreat, while the Qin soldiers ferociously chased after them, slashing at the soldiers who were running away. Arg! Pained cries continuously sounded out as the Devil Horn soldiers and Fire Kingdom soldiers hacked and slashed, causing blood to fly everywhere as people fell to the ground and died, creating a gory scene. Because of the chaotic battle, the Alchemy Saint Beasts were not used, but the Qin Saint Beasts charged forwards, their massive bodies knocking soldiers flying like pebbles. Some of the massive beasts used their massive bodies to crush people into meat paste, causing blood to fly everywhere, causing people to feel a chill. There was nothing they could do, and Li Baiqing and Yao Ming could only leave behind a portion of their people to stall the Qin soldiers while the rest continued to run. Qin madly slaughtered, and the remaining people were quickly killed by Qin soldiers, unable to stop Qin soldiers for long. However, by now, the two armies had reached teleportation points, and people instantly disappeared and were teleported to other places. Qin soldiers continued to ferociously chase after the Devil Horn Empire and Fire Kingdom soldiers. News of the Devil Horn Empire and Fire Kingdom's pitiful defeat quickly spread, and the leaders who had run away were not surprised at all. They had personally seen Qin's strength and understood that they would definitely lose, or else they would not have chosen to run. Luckily, the Devil Horn Empire and Fire Kingdom had stopped Qin, or else they would not have had time to run. After hearing about this, the most powerful alliance and the Second Aeolian Empire felt quite shocked. Qin was so terrifying. Not only did he have alchemy saint beasts, but his soldiers also had alchemy saint beasts. Even if the two factions worked together, they would not be a match for him. What should they do now? They had been sitting here and watching the two factions fight for a long time, and they had made preparations at any moment. If the two factions could break through Qin, they would immediately lead their armies and charge into Qin to take advantage of the situation. On the contrary, now that Qin was too powerful, they could not ignore him and allow Qin to destroy the two factions, or else they would also suffer. As such, they split into two armies and attacked Qin from two sides. Zhao Fu quickly heard about this and was not too surprised. Seeing that most of the people had run away, he gave the order to stop attacking and turn to other battlefield. Only corpses were left on the ground. Most of them were the corpses of the two armies, but there were also a few corpses of Great Qin's soldiers. Blood dyed the ground red, and the dense stench of blood could be smelled even from far away. This was the bitter result of war. Countless white-haired people would send off their black-haired people, and countless families would be destroyed. Qin was quite fast and arrived at the two battlefield. However, when the Alliance and the Second Aeolian Empire saw how terrifying Qin's soldiers were, they did not dare to attack, and they dejectedly retreated. They did not really want to start a war, they just wanted to stall Qin and prevent the two factions from being destroyed. Now they had achieved their goal. Chapter 23:20. Yao Ming miserably led his army back to the Devil Horn Empire. Seeing that Qin had not attacked, he inwardly let out a sigh of relief and immediately ordered people to strengthen their defenses and activate various formations to prevent Qin from attacking. Yao Ming's face was incredibly pale. He now understood that he and Zhao Fu were no longer on the same level, and the Devil Horn Empire was no longer on the same level as the Qin Empire. Both he and the Devil Horn Empire were no longer a match for Qin. This dealt a heavy blow to Yao Ming, who had been very confident and wanted to destroy Qin, and he no longer had the confidence he had before. Now he was thinking about how to defend against Qin in the future and not how to attack Qin. The Devil Horn Empire had suffered great losses this time. Only half of the 30 billion Devil Horn soldiers had returned, and a large number of soldiers had either escaped or died at Qin's hands. It would take a lot of time and resources to replenish its forces, and the Devil Horn Empire's Genesis Qi had been greatly damaged. Zhao Fu looked over and saw that Li Baiqing and the Fire Kingdom had arrived, and he had fled back in a sorry state. At that moment, a valiant-looking general furiously said, "Emperor's son-in-law, I'm going to strip you of all your authority. Now I announce that you are stripped of all your authority, and the army will be under my command. I will immediately order the withdrawal of the entire army. It's not that we didn't gain anything from this battle, but we lost 8 billion or so soldiers, which was a heavy blow to the Fire Kingdom. I don't want the remaining soldiers to die here. Also, I'll report everything that happened here to His Majesty. As for what he'll decide, don't have too much hope." Li Baiqing's face was pale, and his body felt quite powerless, and he almost collapsed to the ground. He had nothing to begin with, and he had relied on the Fire Kingdom's faction to obtain his current status and authority. Now that his authority had been stripped away, he was nothing and did not have any authority at all. He understood this outcome. Back when he had attacked Qin, he had thought that the Fire Kingdom would be able to easily destroy Qin. However, he had never thought that Qin would develop so quickly. Not only had it stopped the Fire Kingdom's army, but it had also caused the Fire Kingdom to suffer such heavy losses. He had expected this outcome, but he was powerless to change anything and could only accept his fate. He was even thinking that he really wasn't the most suitable person to inherit the Great Tang's legacy. What if the Great Tang's legacy was passed to Zhao Fu? Would the Tang Empire be as powerful as Qin? Would it have the glory of Qin? Now, the inheritance of the Tang Empire must be regretting to death. If it knew what had happened now, it would have refused everyone's test and given the inheritance to Zhao Fu before Qin did. It was very likely that the Great Tang was also so powerful that it not only destroyed all the human factions, but also became the most terrifying faction in this region. It was a pity that everything could not be redone. Perhaps it was as if everything was destined. Back then, in order to seize the throne, Li Shimin caused the Xuanwu Gate incident and killed his own brother. Later on, Wu Zetian and Li Ji also fought for power. Moreover, this was not the end. Later on, when Wu Zetian's son became the emperor, he was harmed by his own empress and daughter, who also wanted to become the emperor. Then, Li Longji fought with Princess Taiping for the throne. In the end, he killed Princess Taiping and succeeded in seizing the throne. In the end, Li Longji was obsessed with Yang Guifei, causing the Ungshi rebellion to occur. He fled to Maui, where there was a mutiny, and his throne was taken by his own son. Brothers killing each other, husband and wife killing each other, and father and son killing each other. This was quite common in the Li family. Perhaps this was why such a thing had happened. Li Baiqing's confidence had been completely crushed by Zhao Fu, and he had lost all motivation. His eyes were quite empty, and his face was quite dim. As Li Baiqing's military advisor, Su Yan heavily sighed. After opposing Qin so many times, he felt quite tired and understood that he was not a match for Zhao Fu at all. Perhaps he should have listened to his junior apprentice brother Zhang Heng and traveled the world instead of opposing Qin. The valiant general looked at Li Baiqing and the others and gave the order, "Keep an eye on them." The generals and soldiers obeyed and looked at Li Baiqing furiously. All of this was because of Li Baiqing and the others that countless people had died, and they placed their resentment on him. This put an end to Li Baiqing and the others' thoughts of escaping, and they were brought back to the Fire Kingdom by the generals. Within the palace, a valiant-looking middle-aged man had a cold expression as he looked at Li Baiqing and the others kneeling below. He was the king of the Fire Kingdom, Huo Baiwu. Before, Huo Baiwu greatly trusted Li Baiqing and admired him. He felt that Li Baiqing was very talented, and he had planned to properly nurture him after Li Baiqing destroyed that faction. In the future, he would hand the throne to his daughter, and he would help manage it. However, he had never thought that Li Baiqing and so many Stage 2 soldiers would not only be unable to destroy a border faction, but they would also suffer a crushing defeat at the hands of that new faction. "What do you have to say?" Huo Baiwu asked coldly. Li Baiqing's expression was dim as he said in disappointment, "I have nothing to say, a loss is a loss." Huo Baiwu coldly harumphed, "Since you know you're wrong, don't blame me. You need to give an explanation for this." The princess of the Fire Kingdom, who was Li Baiqing's wife, Huo Qing hurriedly rushed out and cried as she begged, "Imperial father, this isn't Baiqing's fault, it's that Qin is too powerful. You know Baiqing's abilities." Sitting next to him was a beautiful woman with a seductive figure and fiery long hair. She was called Huo Dongmei, and she could not help but say, "Your Majesty, Qing is right." This time, Li Baiqing didn't attack by himself, and he attacked with a powerful faction. However, he still lost. That Qin's faction is too powerful. Hearing this, Huobaiwu suppressed his anger and looked at the valiant general as he asked, "Is everything you said true? Not only does that faction have many war-saint beasts, but its soldiers also grasp smelting power?" The valiant general replied confidently, "That's right. There's no falsehood at all." Everyone in the hall was startled. This matter was very shocking to them. How could a kingdom of a desolate world have holy alchemy beasts? Moreover, there were also soldiers who had mastered the power of alchemy. Was this an ordinary force? Moreover, it was said that even though this faction called Qin was a new world, it had become a local tyrant, and many factions feared it. In fact, sometimes it had to ally with countless factions to suppress it. Everyone was quite curious as to what kind of faction Qin was. Why did it have such terrifying strength? Now, it indeed had the strength to threaten the Fire Kingdom. Chapter 23-21. Now that there was such a great enmity between him and Qin, they were now enemies and could not be reconciled. Hearing that bastard say that he wanted his concubine and daughter to be washed for him to enjoy, Huobaiwu felt incredibly furious. Huobaiwu also wanted to kill Zhao Fu and show this arrogant fellow how high the heavens were and how deep the earth was. He wanted to understand just what sort of faction Qin was. Huobaiwu's gaze fell on Li Baiqing as he said, "Tell me everything you know about Qin." Li Baiqing did not hide anything and told Huobaiwu about how Qin had grown from a small village into a massive empire. After hearing Li Baiqing's explanation, everyone, including Huobaiwu, looked incredibly shocked. How could there be such a genius in the world? He had turned a small village into a massive empire in such a short period of time. If it had been them, they definitely would not have been able to do such a thing. They all felt that they could not compare to Zhao Fu because Zhao Fu's potential was unimaginable to them. Now everyone understood why Li Baiqing had lost to Qin. It was only natural for him to lose to someone like that. There was an honest-looking young man who was the emperor's son-in-law and had a very high status in the Fire Country. However, he was an honest person and was not suitable to be a king. There was a gentle-looking woman next to him, who was the Fire Country's eldest princess, Huomeimu. The two of them had a very close relationship with the third princess and felt that this matter could not be blamed on Li Baiqing. As such, they stepped forward and bowed as they said, "Imperial Father, Baiqing has done his best. Baiqing has already tried his best in this matter. Please give me a lighter punishment." Apart from the two of them, there was a man and a woman standing by the side. The man looked quite thin and weak and seemed to be afraid of trouble, while the woman had a graceful figure and gave off an unruly aura. The man was the second emperor's son-in-law and had a very noble status, and he was the son of a minister. The woman was the second princess, Huobai Niao. Before, she and the third princess had a good relationship, but after Li Baiqing had come, their relationship had deteriorated because she was also very interested in the throne. However, after Li Baiqing had come, he had become a great threat to her. Now, everyone's gazes were focused on him, and they greatly admired him. If this continued, her third sister would definitely become a king, and Li Baiqing would support her. The blazing white bird stepped forward and snorted. "Father, he caused the deaths of so many soldiers. If we don't punish him severely, how can we face those soldiers who died?" Hearing this, Huobaiwu also sank into deep thought. "I will deal with this matter later. Right now, the matter of this Qin is the most important. How do you think we should deal with this matter?" A minister with a long beard and a fiery court robe said, "I think that since Qin is so powerful and we are so far away from him, there is no reason for us to have a dispute with him. We'd better not provoke him in the future. We should think of a way to resolve this grudge." Another minister said, "I think so too. There is no conflict of interest between the Fiery Kingdom and the Qin Kingdom. The battles between the two sides are meaningless. The burly middle-aged general in armor said angrily, Qin killed so many of our soldiers and generals. How can we just let it go? Also, that scum publicly said that he had tarnished the Fire royal family. If we let this go, where would the Fire royal family's face be? I also can't accept this. That Qin killed so many of our soldiers and insulted the Fire royal family. If we go and resolve this grudge, who would be willing to accept this? Another general said. Another minister stood up and retorted, What else can we do? We don't know how that Qin has become so terrifying. If we continue to oppose him, the Fire royal family will be destroyed at their hands sooner or later. Another minister stood up and said, That's right. Even if we send out the entire Fire royal family, we won't be able to destroy Qin. As such, there's no need to continue. A general said coldly, That faction hasn't developed yet, which is why we need to destroy him. Otherwise, who will be able to stop him once he grows up? Also, you said that you want to resolve this grudge with him, but that's your own idea. Do you really think that Qin will easily resolve this grudge? After all, we attacked Qin first, causing Qin to suffer many losses. Finally, he and the third prince's son-in-law are mortal enemies and cannot be reconciled. Do you really think he'll let the third prince's son-in-law off? These words caused the hall to fall silent. What he said was the most important question. Even if they were willing to resolve this grudge with Qin, would Qin be willing to resolve this grudge with them? Moreover, if they wanted to resolve this grudge, the first thing they should do was to send Li Baiqing to Qin. However, Li Baiqing was the third princess' son-in-law. Not only did the king and the queen dote on her, but Li Baiqing also had outstanding abilities. Would the king hand over Li Baiqing? Everyone did not know what the king would do, so they could only look at the king. Li Baiqing started to feel quite nervous. If he was sent back to Qin, he did not dare to imagine what the consequences would be. He would definitely be in a miserable state. More importantly, he wanted to take revenge against Qin and seek justice for his loved ones, his parents and his grandfather. He wanted to make Qin suffer a terrible price, and he definitely could not be sent back to Qin. Li Baiqing knelt on the ground and said earnestly, I'm willing to give up my bloodline and join the Fire Kingdom. I'm willing to devote my entire life to the Fire Kingdom. From my understanding of Zhao Fu, even if you send me back, he will not resolve this grudge. Moreover, he's the type of person who will do what he says. If he says he'll destroy the Fire Kingdom, he will destroy it. If he says he'll defile the Fire Royal Clan, he will defile the Fire Royal Clan. He's never failed to do this. Su Yan knelt on the ground and understood that this was a critical moment. He did not want to be sent back to Qin, because he would definitely be tortured to death and his soul would dissipate. Your Majesty, Li Baiqing's words are all true. Back then, Zhao Fu was able to do anything, and he loved to play with other people's wives, daughters, and mothers. Everyone knows about this perverted hobby. Now that he has said such words, he will definitely do it in the future. Baiqing's mother and the person she once loved have been played and defiled by that bastard. Her father and grandfather are even locked up in prison and suffering. Do you think this kind of person can be trusted? The valiant general's expression was quite unsightly as he said, He's right. I've heard this rumor in that region and everyone knows about it. Who knows how many women there are in his imperial palace? Hearing this, everyone fell silent. It seemed that there was no way to resolve this grudge. Chapter 23-22. Huo Baiwu thought for a long time before saying seriously, All right, I will let you off this time. Go and accept the inheritance of the Fire Country and become a member of the Fire Race's royal family. One of the ways to obtain a bloodline was to obtain a corresponding bloodline through the corresponding inheritance. For example, One would obtain the royal bloodline of a certain country by inheriting the inheritance of a certain country, and one would obtain the corresponding bloodline of a certain family. This type of bloodline naturally could not be compared to a pure bloodline. This was because one could only obtain a bloodline through receiving an inheritance, and it only allowed one to become a member of the race. Now, Li Baiqing was saying that he would give up his own bloodline. Even though he would obtain the purer Inferno royal bloodline, the Great Tang bloodline in his body would become a secondary bloodline. Although he was still relatively pure, he had automatically lost the legacy of the Great Tang and his identity as the successor of the Great Tang. Right now, he was more like a member of the Inferno royalty than a successor of the Great Tang. It could be said that Li Baiqing had not only betrayed the Li family, but also the Tang dynasty. Li Baiqing had originally been proud of his clan and the legacy of the Great Tang, and he had acknowledged his own identity. But now he was about to betray his clan and the Great Tang, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. Although Li Baiqing did not want to do this, he had no other choice. He could only choose this method. Also, the current Fire Country's legacy was definitely stronger than the Great Tang's legacy. The Great Tang's legacy was just a historical legacy, while the Fire Country's legacy was a true kingdom's legacy. Subsequently, Li Baiqing followed Huo Baiwu to a grand hall. There was nothing in the hall other than a platform with a fiery Rubik's cube floating in the air and a fire salamander statue. The fiery cube was the Fire Nation's legacy stone, while the lizard statue was the Fire Nation's nation armament, the crimson flame salamander. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as Li Baiqing stood in front of the stage, while Huo Baiwu stood on the stage and controlled the legacy stone. A massive wave of flames flowed out, forming an enormous mite. The temperature rose, and the air became scalding. On the platform, Huo Baiwu extended his hand and pushed towards Li Baiqing. Huge flames gushed out from the inheritance stone and ferociously poured into Li Baiqing's body. Li Baiqing's body quickly transformed under the support of the great power. It was as if every part of his body was on fire. A wave of flames also fused into his soul, causing his soul to burn. The process was somewhat painful. In the eyes of the bystanders, Li Baiqing had turned into a man of fire. His entire body was burning with countless flames. He knelt on the ground in pain and screamed miserably. As time passed, the flames on Li Baiqing's body grew smaller and a formless aura slowly spread out. Roar! An unwilling and sorrowful dragon roar resounded within Li Baiqing's body. A golden divine dragon exuding a noble aura dissipated within Li Baiqing's body. It was the legacy of the Great Tang. Now that Li Baiqing had betrayed the Li clan and the Great Tang, the legacy of the Great Tang had disappeared. After suffering several heavy blows, the Great Tang's legacy had become extremely weak. Now that it had suffered another blow, it could no longer maintain its strength and collapsed. The Great Tang's legacy no longer existed in this world. If they could really do it all over again, the Great Tang legacy would definitely choose Zhao Fu at all costs. The result would be the complete opposite. One would be heaven while the other would be hell. Roar! After the purple divine dragon exuding a noble aura dissipated, another dragon roar sounded out. Countless flames gathered within Li Baiqing's body, forming a fire dragon that gave off immense heat. This fire dragon was made of flames and had a pair of large flame wings. It did not have dragon claws, and it had a pair of gem-like eyes and a pair of ox-like horns. It was the Fire Kingdom's legacy. Seeing this, Huo Baiwu smiled and retracted the legacy power. Finally, the flames on Li Baiqing's body dissipated. His appearance had greatly changed. His hair became fiery red, his eyes became fiery red, and his ears became very small. His body gave off a fiery aura. The current Li Baiqing was no longer the Li Baiqing of the past. He had a different legacy, different power, and different appearance. Huo Baiwu looked at Li Baiqing and gave a satisfied smile as he nodded. Li Baiqing was now a member of the Fire Kingdom's royal family, and he could be better nurtured in the future. Li Baiqing's matter had come to an end. As for Qin's matter, they still had to discuss it in detail. This time, Huo Baiwu decided to let Li Baiqing handle it personally. This matter was simply too important. Finally, his gaze returned to where Qin was. The Alliance and Second Wind God did not dare to attack Qin, so Zhao Fu did not attack them. Instead, he turned his forces and headed back to the original battlefield. Because they had left in a hurry, they had not ordered people to clean up the battlefield. Now that they had returned, Zhao Fu ordered people to start cleaning up the battlefield. He also ordered his soldiers to continue to attack. Zhao Fu heard that the Fire Kingdom's army had retreated back to the Fire Kingdom. Now that they had retreated, Zhao Fu had one less opponent. Now, only the Devil Horn Army, Alliance, and Second Wind God were left. This was definitely a good thing for Zhao Fu. He could now focus on destroying the remaining factions, and the pressure on him would be greatly reduced. As for now, Zhao Fu did not continue to attack the other factions and instead turned to attack the Fire Kingdom's base. Back then, when the Fire Kingdom had appeared there, they had chased the people from that continent to the other two continents. The world where the Fire Kingdom's base was located was called the Forest World. It was a world of forests and there were forest people living there. Other than that, they looked like normal humans, but they had green eyes and brown hair. There were a few leaves on their heads, and their bodies gave off a woody aura. They were not very strong. The forest people had been heavily injured when the Fire Kingdom had been in power, and their strength had been greatly reduced. Afterwards, many factions had been worried about the Fire Kingdom, so they had moved to this world. This caused the forest people's strength to become even weaker. Zhao Fu's goal was to destroy this world. Qin only had 9 worlds, and he only lacked one to become a royal kingdom. Zhao Fu just needed to take down this forest people world, which was why he had turned back. Moreover, Qin's main goal was to attack more enemies, seize more land, and speed up the 3 realms' development. With the forest people's current strength, they did not have any way to defend against Qin's attack. This was to be expected. The forest people only had 3 continents, and one had been easily taken over by the Fire Kingdom's army. Now, Qin had easily taken over that region, and they had not paid any price or casualties. Following this, Qin had attacked the other 2 continents. Chapter 23:23. Before, the forest people had been worried because of the existence of the Flame Army. They were not a match for the Flame Army at all. Back then, the Flame Army had been able to easily take down a continent. The forest world only had 3 continents, and it would have been easy for the Flame Army to destroy the forest world. However, the Flame Army had not done so. Back then, they had been members of the Alliance, and had not wanted to be destroyed by the Devil Horn and Qin. However, because of the Flame Army's appearance, the Alliance had abandoned them. Now that the Flame Army had appeared, it was much better than abandoning them. Although they were furious, there was nothing they could do about it. Now that the Flame Army had left, the forest people were naturally happy. They thought that their world had been saved, and some of the forest people who had been chased to other worlds wanted to return to their homes. However, they were not happy too early. After the wolf left, a tiger appeared. No, it was not a tiger but a ferocious dragon. Qin had suddenly changed directions to attack the forest world, which the other factions had not expected. Now there were only 3 factions that could stop Qin: the Alliance, the Devil Horn, and the Wind God. The Devil Horn tribe was now afraid of Qin and focused on building defenses. Adding on the fact that they had suffered great losses, they could not attack Qin. The Alliance and the Wind God were in a tough spot. Even if they used their previous method to attack Qin so that Qin could not attack others, they had just used this method. Qin was prepared, and if they used it again, it would not be very effective. The key was that Qin had been incredibly fast. Even if they attacked Qin, Qin's soldiers would only need to hold on for a while before Qin would be able to destroy the forest world and turn to attack them. However, if they did not do anything and Qin took down the forest world, it would become a royal kingdom. It would be the first royal kingdom in this region. In the end, the two factions decided to send out small groups of soldiers to test Qin's defenses. If they were not strong, they would attack. If they were, they could only watch. Charge. The two factions sent out a few armies to attack Qin from different directions. Very quickly they obtained result. Not only were there many soldiers guarding the city walls, but there were also many ferocious beasts. Everyone in the alliance and Wind God could only sigh. They could no longer stop Qin's rise. By now, Qin had officially started to attack the two continents. Massive waves of soldiers arrived at the city walls, giving off an incredibly terrifying aura. No one could stop them and destroy everything. When the forest guards on the city walls sensed this aura, their faces turned pale and fear surged in their hearts. Originally, they had thought that Hui Yan's army was terrifying enough. Now, it seemed that Qin's army was even more terrifying. That was why they could defeat Hui Yan's army and make them flee in panic. Zhao Fu stood in the air and looked down at the terrified forest folk as he said with a domineering smile, "Either kneel and submit or die." A mature woman with tan skin and a pretty face said with a pale face, "We don't want to be enemies with you, Qin. Please, Qin, let us go." Her name was Sun Yin, and she was the leader of the most powerful faction in the continent. Beside her were the leaders of the various factions. They looked at Zhao Fu in terror, and their gazes were filled with hope and begging for Qin to let them go. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a cold smile as he said, "Everyone, attack!" Boom! 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 The war saint beasts, who had long since been prepared, aimed their cannons at the defensive city walls. Massive beams of light shot out, bringing with them immense power as they tore through the sky and landed on the city walls. Bang! 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 Massive explosions sounded out as terrifying shockwaves spread out. Some of the city walls were unable to block the beams of light at all and were blasted apart. Countless rocks flew everywhere, and the people on the city walls fell down and screamed, "Kill!" Qin's soldiers roared and gave off a massive aura as they flooded forwards like a black tidal wave. The forest men did their best to counterattack, shooting out wooden spikes. However, they were unable to deal any damage to Qin's soldiers, and they then unleashed their race's abilities. They cut their wrists and allowed their blood to drip onto the ground. The blood seemed to have a mind of its own and flowed into the ground. Countless green sprouts burst out of the ground and quickly grew, giving off an aura of life. Following this, the ground split open as monsters grew out. These were the tree monsters that the forest men had summoned. The tree monsters were 3 meters tall and were as thin as tree trunk. They were brown, and their hands were like sharp claws. There were leaves on their heads, and they gave off a powerful aura. There were not many of them. Roar! 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 The tree monsters roared at Qin's soldiers, and their roars shook the surroundings before ferociously rushing at Qin's soldiers. Even though the tree monsters gave off powerful auras, Qin's soldiers were not afraid because they were more powerful than the tree monsters. Waves of alchemy power flowed out as countless metals gathered in the air, forming large sharp swords that gave off shocking auras. Shing, shing, shing sword hums sounded out as the soldiers controlled their large swords and slashed towards the tree monsters. They were incredibly fast and left behind afterimages, causing people's hairs to stand on end. The tree monsters swung their sharp claws, wanting to block the large swords. However, there were simply too many of them, and the large swords pierced through the tree monsters' bodies. Some of the tree monsters' bodies were cut into pieces, causing yellow blood to fly everywhere. Most of the tree monsters, which had seemed quite powerful, had died, and only a small portion remained. Qin's soldiers gave off ferocious auras as they charged forwards. The two armies quickly clashed, and the outcome was quite obvious. The Flame Army and Devil Horn Army were not a match for Qin's soldiers, so how could the forest men be a match for Qin's soldiers? Arg! Pained cries sounded out as blood flew everywhere. Facing Qin's soldiers, the forest men were unable to resist at all, and they were almost slaughtered. The two armies gave off ferocious auras as they clashed together. However, in just a few exchanges, the forest men were forced back, and the forest men's soldiers all looked terrified. Seeing the countless forest men's soldiers die, the leaders furiously roared and exploded out with all of their power as they charged at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu looked quite disdainful. He was now an Emperor Heaven Realm expert and would have no problem sweeping through the central domain. If these people dared to charge at him, they were naturally seeking death. Chapter 23-24. I'm going to kill you. The first to rush over was a burly man. He raised his saber with both hands and sent a wave of power into it, causing the saber to give off an intense saber light. Before the burly man could slash out, Zhao Fu instantly disappeared, and his hand pierced through the burly man's chest, causing blood to fly everywhere. As expected, the burly man was instantly killed. Swish! A figure suddenly appeared behind Zhao Fu. It was an elder wearing tight green clothes. He held a dagger in his hand, and it gave off a cold light as it slashed towards Zhao Fu's throat. If they wanted Qin's soldiers to retreat, they had to kill or heavily injure Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's body did not move at all, and a black aura flame ignited around Zhao Fu's body, forming a black spike that suddenly stabbed towards the elder. Before the elder could react, his chest was pierced by the spike, and he immediately died. Arg! A cry sounded out as a powerful aura rushed towards Zhao Fu. Sen Yin's body gave off a green light as she appeared in front of Zhao Fu. She punched towards Zhao Fu with the power to shatter mountains, bringing with it an intense wind. Zhao Fu looked at Sen Yin condescendingly as he stretched out his hand and easily caught the incoming fist. Sen Yin's heart sank and she looked somewhat panicked. Although she knew that Zhao Fu was very strong, he was dozens of times more terrifying than she had expected. Immediately, Sen Yin wanted to pull her hand back and escape, but she could not move her hand at all. Sen Yin's face became pale as she looked at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu smiled and stretched out his hand, pulling Sen Yin into his embrace. Sen Yin immediately started to struggle in fear, but she could not break free from Zhao Fu's grasp. Seeing that 2 of the 3 strongest people had died and 1 had been captured, the other leaders were so frightened that they did not dare to get close, and they immediately turned and ran. Zhao Fu did not chase after them, and he smiled as he looked at Sen Yin, who was struggling in his embrace. His other hand reached into her clothes and started to play with the thing in front of her chest. Sen Yin's face became red as she cried out in embarrassment and anger, "Let go of me!" However, Zhao Fu did not resist and continued to play with her as he looked at the situation below, treating her as a toy. Now that the leaders had run, the soldiers below also chose to run. They had completely lost the ability to resist, and Qin's soldiers ferociously chased after them, shouting that they would not kill those who surrendered. Some of the forest soldiers threw down their weapons in fear and knelt on the ground, surrendering to Qin. There was not much to say about this battle, and without any surprises, Great Qin had won. There was no surprise at all, and Qin of the forest had won. On the other side, Wei Liao was in charge of attacking, and he was able to easily break through the continent's defenses. He was now conquering cities and killing those who resisted, subduing those who were willing to submit to Great Qin. Of the continent of the continent to the continent, and of and. Boom. A massive explosion sounded out, shaking the surroundings. At that moment, all of the forest world's fate gathered and surged towards Qin. As Qin absorbed this massive amount of fate, he also sent Qin's fate into the forest world, and their auras fused together. Boom. A shocking explosion once again sounded out, shaking the surrounding 100 world. Countless people heard this massive explosion and their expressions changed as they looked towards Qin's direction. At that moment, all of Qin's fate was gathering towards the imperial capital of Qin. The aura was very vast, like a sea of stars. Everyone felt small and fragile. After a massive amount of fate gathered, it flowed into Great Qin's legacy stone. Great Qin's legacy stone absorbed the fate and gave off a heaven-shaking ripple that continuously spread out. The temperature instantly plummeted, and countless people started to feel terror in their hearts. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a massive black ray of light containing destructive power shot into the sky. It was as if it had opened a large hole in the sky, and a formless energy spread out. The heavens and earth dimmed as clouds swirled and the sun and moon dimmed. Sand and pebbles flew everywhere as auras became chaotic and creatures panicked. These ripples continuously spread out, affecting the surrounding 100 worlds. Even the factions in the inner domains and the factions in the neighboring domains could sense these powerful ripples. Everyone looked quite shocked because this was the power of a royal kingdom. A faction had become a royal kingdom. Everyone from the other domains felt quite curious. What kind of faction could become a royal kingdom in a boundary region? The various factions in the inner domains of the ancient stem domain had long since set up spies in that region. Even though Qin had activated Heaven's barrier, the region had fallen into peace, and they had not paid much attention to it. Now that there were ripples from a royal kingdom in that direction, the various factions quickly received news that Qin had dispelled the barrier and had suddenly attacked those two factions. By now, the Fire Nation army had retreated, and the Devil Horn army passively defended. Qin had taken this opportunity to conquer another world and become the first royal kingdom faction in that region. The various factions all looked shocked as they spoke. That Qin is quite terrifying. Why has he been hiding in the barrier this entire time? Why does he have such terrifying power and simultaneously defeat two existences of the same realm? This is especially so for that Fire Nation. Even we have to give them some face. That Qin is simply too shocking. I wonder how he did it. Back then, I had high hopes for him, and now he has used his strength to prove that he is the overlord of that region. I was not wrong about him. Now that our ancient stem domain has another royal kingdom, our overall strength has become a bit stronger. We should go pay a proper visit later. Qin is now a faction on the same level as us. I'll go as well. I want to see what kind of royal kingdom Qin is. I remember that it's just a new faction and has only developed for 10 or so years. Its growth rate is simply shocking. What a pity! I had planned to go and befriend Qin, but Qin has offended too many people. I didn't want to cause any trouble, so I didn't go. Now I feel quite regretful. Ha ha ha, now that the situation in that region has been broken, Qin now has the aura of a king. Now, it's time to see if Qin can unify that region. The Devil Horn Alliance, Wind God Faction, and Devil Horn Alliance had already expected this, but looking at the black pillar of light in the sky and sensing those terrifying ripples, their faces became somewhat pale. Now that Qin had become a royal kingdom faction and was even more powerful than them, their days would become even more difficult. It was the first time they had felt so powerless facing Qin. In order to stop Qin, the three factions did not hesitate and quickly gathered together to discuss how to deal with Qin, who had become a royal kingdom. Chapter 23-25. Now, the sky above Qin was covered by dark clouds, giving off a massive aura of suppression. 9 savage black dragons swam about in the sky, revealing their scales and claws, looking mysterious and terrifying. Roar, roar, roar. 9 dragons' roars suddenly sounded out as the 9 domineering black dragons spread out in the clouds. They raised their heads and gave off massive roars that tore through the sky as if they were summoning a terrifying existence to descend. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the sky trembled. A massive silver-white orb of light descended from the sky, giving off boundless silver-white light and a powerful royal kingdom's power. This was the royal kingdom core. Royal kingdoms were quite different to ordinary kingdoms. Ordinary barony kingdoms, marquisate kingdoms, and dukedom kingdoms were too weak, but royal kingdoms were truly powerful factions in the Heaven-Awakened world and would receive special treatment from the Heaven-Awakened world. After receiving the world's acknowledgement, their status and fate would be even more powerful than those of barony kingdoms, dukedom kingdoms, and marquisate kingdoms. The royal kingdom core gave off a massive aura as it lightly descended and fused into the legacy stone. Boom! A massive explosion once again sounded out as the legacy stone gave off countless rays of black light, illuminating the entire heavens and earth. Waves of black light containing immense power continuously spread out, covering the entire region around Qin. Countless residents could clearly sense the changes happening to themselves and their surroundings. Their bodies gave off faint black light, and the ground and other things also gave off faint black light as everything went through some sort of transformation. A while later, the powerful black light stopped, and the ground seemed to become filled with more life force, and the plants became more lush and tall. The residents also felt that they had become more powerful, and their constitutions were better than before. Some of their injuries also disappeared. Apart from this, the karmic luck that the commoners could not sense had become much more stable than before. Now that they were all residents of a royal kingdom, they received some buffs from a royal kingdom, which was why there were such changes. They were all residents of a royal kingdom, and the residents of a royal kingdom were more prestigious and powerful than those of other marquisate kingdoms, barony kingdoms, and dukedom kingdoms. Back at the legacy stone in Qin, 9 black dragons had appeared around the legacy stone. They were only 30 centimeters long, but they seemed to have lives of their own as they circled around the legacy stone. The 9 black dragons were corporeal forms of fate, which meant that Qin's fate had become more stable and powerful, and it had various abilities. Notification: Congratulations, your country has been upgraded to a kingdom. Notification: Congratulations to the Qin Empire for leveling up to a kingdom. You've gained all the attributes of a kingdom. Notification: Qin's nation armament became the kingdom's nation armament. Notification: Qin's clan armament has become the royal kingdom's clan armament. Notification: Qin's bloodline has been strengthened. Notification: Congratulations to Qin's nation fate for transforming into the 9 dragons' nation fate. Notification: You've obtained a guardian beast. Notification: You have obtained the kingdom's protection. Notification: You have obtained the power of the kingdom. Notification: You have obtained a kingdom domain. Right now, Zhao Fu was still in the forest world, standing in the sky, one hand still playing with Sin Yin's clothes. Sin Yin weakly leaned against Zhao Fu's chest, her face flushed red as she panted, letting Zhao Fu bully her. Hearing these system announcements, Zhao Fu could not help but smile. He felt that leveling up to a royal kingdom was quite different from before. Zhao Fu started to look at the system announcements. He did not need to look at the first few, as they were just simple congratulations. The rest of the system announcements showed that his nation armament and clan armament had leveled up to royal grade, and they had gone through changes and were much more powerful than before. As for the Qin bloodline, no matter what kind of bloodline it was, such as a clan bloodline, an expert's bloodline, or a legacy bloodline, as long as someone joined Qin, they would become part of the Qin bloodline, and they would be affected by Qin's nation fate. Now that Qin's bloodline had leveled up, not only had the bloodline's power increased, but they had also become more fused with Qin, and they now had a portion of Qin's attributes. As such, it was possible to differentiate between different people. For example, the fish scale people on Qin's side could be called the Qin fish scale people, as they had Qin's attributes and did not have Qin's name. The other fish scale people who had not joined Qin could not become part of the Qin fish scale people, as they did not have Qin's attribute. Apart from the clan, there was also the clan. Before, the Zhang family was a very powerful clan, But after joining Qin and obtaining Qin's attributes, the Zhang family could be called the Qin-Zhang family. In the past, there was a faction called the School of Taoism. After joining Qin, they would obtain Qin's attributes, so they would naturally be called the School of Taoism in Qin. These factions now had a home, and if they fused with Qin, they would be of great benefit to Qin. They would be able to stabilize fate and increase the kingdom's vitality. The earlier they joined Qin's faction or clan, the more they fused with Qin, and the more powerful Qin's attributes would be. The first people who joined Qin's faction, which was when Qin was still a town, now had a pure Qin bloodline. After looking at the bloodline information, Zhao Fu looked at the 9 Dragons' kingdom fate in curiosity. There was nothing special about this. It was just a physical manifestation of a kingdom's fate. It was more powerful and stable than before, and when necessary, it could give off monstrous attacks, which consumed a massive amount of fate. The final few were quite interesting to Zhao Fu. The first was the Kingdom Beast. Zhao Fu looked at its information and found that it did not give a powerful creature as a kingdom beast but a method to nurture massive beasts. That's right, it was a method to nurture massive beasts. This was the reward for leveling up to a royal kingdom, and even if one had not obtained this method before, one could obtain it now. However, as long as one leveled up, it would be given out, making this method seem quite ordinary. Most royal kingdoms had it, and it did not have much of an advantage. This method required one to first find a den or a powerful creature and bind their bloodline to Qin's. Then, one could take a portion of Qin's legacy stone's power and fuse it into the creature. After fusing with the creature's power, one would have to continue nurturing it. After absorbing the legacy stone's power, they would become larger and larger, and they would become more and more powerful. That way, the massive beasts would be nurtured. The method was quite simple. The strength of these massive beasts depended on how powerful a kingdom was. The more powerful a kingdom was, the more powerful the massive beasts it nurtured would be. Of course, a very powerful kingdom would not use this method to nurture massive beasts, as they had even more powerful methods. Zhao Fu did not place much importance on this method. Qin had a few other methods of nurturing massive beasts, and they would be more effective than this method. However, Zhao Fu did not give up on this method, and he planned to nurture some. Perhaps they would be useful in the future. Chapter 23-26. Finally, there was the Kingdom Beast. Once it was bound to the kingdom, its power and fate would fuse together, and it would be almost impossible to separate them. As such, if a kingdom chose a creature as its kingdom beast, it would always be that creature. Zhao Fu looked at the second kingdom guardian. This ability was used for defense, and it required a large amount of fate to form a massive energy shield that covered the entire kingdom. The Kingdom Guardian's defensive power and range were incredibly shocking, and once it was activated, it would be very difficult for factions of the same stage to break the Kingdom Guardian. Even though the Kingdom Guardian was very powerful, it was also known as the Destruction Shield because it required a large amount of fate and the kingdom's source power. After using it, the kingdom would enter a period of weakness. Under normal circumstances, a kingdom would never use the kingdom's guardian unless it was a matter that could destroy the kingdom. Only then would the kingdom's forces use it regardless of the cost. This defensive method was the kingdom's last resort, and many kingdoms relied on it to survive and not be destroyed by other factions. At the same time, it also increased the difficulty of destroying a kingdom's faction. The third type of kingdom power was kingdom power. There were 2 types of kingdom power. One was to give ordinary people kingdom power, which was relatively weak and couldn't be very useful. The second was the kingdom's power bestowed upon the soldiers. This kingdom's power was much stronger. However, there were classes for this type of kingdom power: ordinary soldiers, elite soldiers, general soldiers, and king soldiers. Ordinary soldiers were very common soldiers, elite soldiers were better than ordinary soldiers, and elite soldiers were better than elite soldiers. General soldiers could be said to be powerful soldiers who followed the general. Not only did they have all sorts of experience, but they were also not weak and were even stronger than ordinary elite. Finally, there were king soldiers, who were the strongest soldiers chosen from countless people. Qin also divided soldiers into several types, most of which were based on their own experience and power. For example, Stage 1 soldiers were different from Stage 2 soldiers, and new soldiers were different from old soldiers. Now that the kingdom soldiers were divided into classes, it made Qin's class more obvious, and it wouldn't affect Qin too much. Zhao Fu would deal with this matter later, and he would divide Qin's ordinary soldiers, Qin's elite soldiers, and Qin's elite soldiers. Finally, there was the kingdom domain. A kingdom territory was a territory within a kingdom. The various production stats and immunity to natural disasters would also be greatly enhanced. It could also increase the cultivation speed of soldiers and civilians, and it could even strengthen their physiques. This ability was very powerful, and it was effective on everyone. Apart from this effect, the royal domain would also weaken invaders' power. This meant that if you attacked a royal domain, entering the royal domain would be equivalent to entering the royal domain, and your power would also be weakened. The degree of weakening depended on the strength of the kingdom's domain. The stronger the kingdom's domain, the more power it would weaken, which would put the attacker at a disadvantage. Most importantly, there was no limit to this weakening effect. As long as an invader stepped into the kingdom's territory, it would be weakened. Stronger than the kingdom domain were the imperial domain and the empire domain. If a kingdom's soldier dared to attack an empire without any defensive means, just the empire's territory alone would cause him to lose a large portion of his strength, and others could easily kill him. Also, because imperial kingdom soldiers had the power of the imperial kingdom, they suffered very little damage when invading kingdoms. Because imperial kingdom soldiers had the power of the imperial kingdom, they also suffered very little damage when invading imperial kingdoms. This increased the difficulty of destroying a royal kingdom or above faction. If one attacked a royal kingdom without making preparations, they would be at a disadvantage in all aspects. After looking through the information, Zhao Fu grinned. Now, Qin could be counted as a powerful faction in the heaven-awakened world. Without becoming a royal kingdom, one did not have the qualifications to become a powerful faction. With all sorts of royal kingdom stats and the benefits from the world, Qin's development would most likely become even faster. A higher being from Emperor Path College had once told Zhao Fu that he had to quickly level up to a royal kingdom. Only then would he have the power to protect himself. Now that Qin had leveled up to a royal kingdom, who knew what would happen? Why would only royal kingdoms have the power to protect themselves? In that case, the royal kingdom faction would undoubtedly suffer a heavy blow. Even though Zhao Fu did not know much about this, Qin now had some confidence. The abnormal signs from Qin becoming a royal kingdom gradually disappeared, and the surroundings returned to normal. The forest world had been completely conquered, and it now belonged to Qin. Now, he just needed to stabilize the people's hearts, solidify his rule, and peacefully develop. There was no need for Zhao Fu to worry about anything else. The losses from conquering 2 forest continents would not be too great, and the forest people would not be able to resist at all against Qin. Zhao Fu looked down at the red-faced Sen Yin in his embrace, and gave a trace of a smile, as he pulled his hand out from under her clothes. Sen Yin's eyes became watery as she breathed raggedly and said, "I want you." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I'll enjoy you later. Come back to Qin with me. There are still some things I need to take care of." Sen Yin's mind was in chaos, and she leaned against Zhao Fu's embrace and did not refuse. Following this, Zhao Fu returned to Qin and sat on his throne as he listened to the various ministers' reports. At first, the gains from conquering the forest world were not very great, and there were only around 10 billion people. Many people had directly escaped from the forest world. Because of the Flame Army, they had been prepared to escape at any time, and Qin could not stop them. As such, the gains were not very great. Needless to say, there were countless resources, food, and treasures. Now, the total population of Qin had reached more than 60 billion, while ordinary kingdoms only had 400 billion. Qin had 200 billion more than them. This was mainly because Qin had wantonly plundered countless people from the very beginning, which was why there were so many people. The number of soldiers had also reached 60 billion, of which there were 10 billion Stage 2 soldiers and 200 million Stage 3 soldiers. Adding on the fact that many of Great Qin's soldiers had alchemy skills, even if some powerful royal kingdoms attacked, Great Qin would be able to retaliate. They did not fear royal kingdoms at all, as Great Qin was now a royal kingdom. Apart from the population and soldiers, Qin's development was also quite fast. There were all sorts of tall buildings, large tracts of farmland, herds of cows and sheep, and the various systems had become more and more complete. There was no need for Zhao Fu to say anything else. Zhao Fu continued to discuss various matters with the various ministers in Qin. On the other side, the Alliance and the Devil Horn's second wind god's discussions became even more intense because they could sense that the ripples had already disappeared. After Qin became a royal kingdom, it would soon carry out its next move, and they had to make preparations. Chapter 23-27. How do you think we should defend against the current Qin? I can't think of any way to defend against him. Qin is simply too terrifying. If we want to defeat Qin, the most important thing is to defend against Qin's war beast and alchemy power. If we can't think of a way to defend against those two things, we won't be able to defend against Qin at all. I understand what you're saying, but only the alchemist race has those two things. I don't know how Qin obtained them, but our alchemist race can't defeat him, so how can we defeat Qin? I feel that we can only passively defend, and use the same methods we used against the alchemist race to deal with Qin. Otherwise, I really can't think of any way to defend against Qin. I feel the same way. However, even though Qin is powerful, as long as we unite together, Qin will not dare to easily attack us. As such, we can't fight amongst ourselves. Let's contact the Fire Kingdom. That's a true royal kingdom, and it has great power and foundations. Moreover, it has great enmity with Qin. Perhaps it has the power to deal with Qin. That's right. The Fire Kingdom is our greatest helper, so we can't give up on it. We must properly contact them to defend against Qin. Also, contact the factions in the inner regions of the ancient stem domain and see if they're willing to destroy Qin. That's a good idea. We'll gather things to deal with Qin while allying with other powerful factions to destroy Qin. After the meeting concluded, the leaders left the palace to do their own things, but a small portion of the leaders stayed behind. Among them were Feng Xunsha and Yao Ming. Feng Xunsha looked at the people who stayed behind and gave a trace of a smile as she said, Qin has already leveled up into a royal kingdom, and only a royal kingdom can deal with a royal kingdom. The Aeolian Empire now has 9 worlds and is 1 world away from becoming a royal kingdom. What I'm thinking is that, if the Alliance gives up on a world, the Aeolian Empire will take that world down. With that world, the Wind God Kingdom will also become a royal kingdom, and Qin will not be much weaker. Yao Ming's expression was cold. He was not in the mood to laugh, and he said, I agree. The Devil Horn Empire needs a world to become a royal kingdom. An old man with a long beard and a white robe said awkwardly, I'm afraid this will be a bit difficult. No force wants to be destroyed. Moreover, now is the time to resist Qin. If we do this, the army's morale will be unstable, and even the alliance will be greatly affected. Feng Xunsha smiled as she said, I naturally know about this problem, so I don't want that world's resources, people, or treasures. I just want that world's territory. I'll leave those things to you. Also, I can sign a contract with you to never attack each other. This way, you won't have to worry about the Aeolian Empire in the future. Yao Ming said, My conditions are the same. As long as we give you the territory and everything else, you don't even have to send out a single soldier. Just destroy the world and leave it to us. Hearing this, the people who stayed behind hesitated. Even though they had formed an alliance, that did not mean that they could treat others as their own. They did not care if others were destroyed or not. The main thing was that they could not be affected. Now, they did not need to do anything to obtain everything in a world apart from its territory. This would not harm them, and it would instead bring them many benefits, making them feel quite tempted. Back then, the alliance had been formed to defend against the Devil Horn Empire, Qin Kingdom, and the Wind God Empire. If the Devil Horn Empire signed a contract with the Wind God Empire and destroyed Qin Kingdom, they would not have to worry about this in the future. Those people were not in a hurry to make a decision, and they discussed for a while before saying, All right, we can agree to this. However, you have to make a promise first in case you go back on your word in the future. Feng Xunsha gave a trace of a happy smile as she said, No problem, we can sign the contract now. Hearing this, Yao Ming felt a bit better. As long as the Devil Horn Empire became a royal kingdom, they would have more confidence in resisting Qin Kingdom. Seeing that Feng Xunsha was so straightforward, those people smiled and said, Tell us which 2 worlds you want to destroy first. In order to minimize the impact of this, we need to talk to the other factions. During this period of time, there might be many things that we need your 2 factions to give to them. Feng Xunsha did not hesitate and smiled as she agreed. At most, they would lose some benefits, but they would be able to obtain a world. This was quite a good deal. Yao Ming didn't refuse either. Following this, Feng Xunsha and Yao Ming told them which 2 worlds they wanted to conquer. These 2 worlds were near the 2 factions, and they were quite ordinary. One was called the Pigman World and the other was called the Mountain World. After hearing about these 2 worlds, those people left and told the factions outside of the 2 worlds not to worry about the 2 worlds. They also told them that this would be beneficial to them. The more powerful the Devil Horn Empire and Aeolian Empire were, the more they would be able to resist Qin Kingdom. Moreover, they would be able to obtain all sorts of benefits without doing anything, and they would not have to worry about the threat of those 2 factions in the future. Everyone gave a trace of a smile and agreed. After all, they would not be the ones being destroyed, and there would be all sorts of benefits, so why would they refuse? The 2 worlds did not know about this and continued to do their own things. They had not been sent out to persuade the other factions to help destroy Qin Kingdom, and they had instead been sent out to defend this side. They were currently transporting defensive materials to the front lines to construct different defenses, and they had also sent out some soldiers to be stationed there, not worried at all that they would be in danger. They knew that now that they had joined the alliance would not do anything to them. Moreover, their greatest enemy was Qin Kingdom and not them, so there was no reason for them to act. However, they did not know that the other people in the alliance had long since given up on them and were waiting for them to be destroyed so that they could split up the benefit. Yao Ming and Feng Xunsha returned to their factions and started to make preparations. They first gathered information about the 2 worlds, and after finding that they were not on guard, they gathered countless soldiers and planned to destroy those 2 worlds as quickly as possible. They were worried that things would suddenly change, and they were especially worried that Qin Kingdom would suddenly attack. If that happened, their plan would fail, so they had to destroy the 2 worlds as quickly as possible. At the same time, they had been waiting for this day for a long time. They had always wanted to raise their factions to royal kingdoms, and they felt quite excited and expectant. Chapter 23-28. Kill. The Devil Horn army gathered together and suddenly appeared within the Pigman world. They loudly roared and flooded towards the pigmen. Seeing the Devil Horn army suddenly attack them, The pigmen could not react at all and felt quite confused. They had never thought that the Devil Horn army would suddenly attack them. The pigmen immediately thought of the alliance. They were members of the alliance, and according to the agreement, as long as there was danger, they would send out a request for reinforcements, and the alliance members would quickly come to defend against the danger. They immediately sent out requests for reinforcements from the surrounding factions, but there was no reply at all. It was as if the alliance factions had not received their requests at all. The pigmen's hearts sank and their expressions became quite unsightly. They sent out a few more requests, but there was still no reply. The pigmen immediately understood that the alliance had sold out the pigmen world. They felt incredibly furious and cursed at the alliance for being a bunch of trash. There were not many people guarding the defensive walls, and they had thought that nothing would happen and that they should be working together to defend against Qin. Back then, some people had said that only by working together would they be able to defend against Qin, and the leaders of the various factions had nodded in agreement. Thinking about it now, they felt that they were incredibly hypocritical. Facing the Devil Horn army's sudden attack, the pigmen world started to panic and fell into chaos. The various pigmen factions gathered their forces in that direction, and they personally headed over. They understood that if they could not defend against the Devil Horn army, the pigmen world would perish. However, it was too late. The Devil Horn world was made up of 9 worlds and was incredibly powerful. Adding on the fact that it had suddenly attacked, the pigmen were not prepared at all. Roar, roar, roar. A large group of devil beasts gave off massive roars that shook the surroundings. They suddenly appeared in the sky and gave off immense power as they leapt onto the defensive walls and started slaughtering the pigmen. A giant bird demonic beast flapped its blade-like wings and flew towards the countless pighead soldiers. Its power was extremely terrifying, and it easily chopped the many pighead soldiers into pieces of meat. A massive python climbed up the defensive walls and opened its mouth, quickly devouring the many pigmen. It could easily devour 10 or so pigmen in one bite, and the pigmen held weapons and hacked at the devil beasts, causing sparks to fly out. The devil beasts' bodies were as tough as steel. A massive bull gave off a ferocious aura as it charged at the pigmen, sending them flying. The pigmen who were sent flying coughed up blood, and many of their bones were broken. Some died on the spot, while others were heavily injured. The Devil Horn army had many devil beasts and did not have many people guarding the defensive walls, so the devil beasts were able to easily take down the defensive walls. After the Devil Horn army passed over the Great Wall, they revealed savage expressions and charged into the pigmen world. As long as they could break through this city wall, they would be able to do whatever they wanted and would not be restrained at all. Killing people, eating people, torturing them, raping them, robbing them, Yao Ming would allow it all. Yao Ming often did this in order to increase his soldiers' enthusiasm and fighting strength, and it had already become a norm. At that moment, the gathered pig-headed soldiers blocked in front of them. The ferocious Devil Horn soldiers did not hesitate and raised their weapons as they charged at the pig-headed soldiers. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of weapons colliding rang out continuously. The battlefield fell into chaos. Both sides fought fiercely, and blood splattered everywhere. The outcome was quite obvious. Not only were the Devil Horn army's soldiers stronger, but they also had more people. The pigmen were unable to stop them at all, and they continuously retreated. The Devil Horn army was as ferocious as demons, and they continued to charge forwards. In the end, the pigmen completely collapsed, and the pigmen army scattered. Some of the pigmen submitted to the Devil Horn army, while others immediately escaped. Back at the Mountain Rock world. The Mountain Rock world was a spirit race's world, and the Mountain Rock people had mountain spirit energy. They could give off massive power and powerful defenses. They were more vigilant than the pigmen, and they had been like the pigmen, sending resources to the battlefield and fortifying their defenses, thinking of various ways to stop Qin. As such, they did not think too much about anything else. However, during this process, the other faction's gazes towards them became different. They faintly felt that something was off, and they immediately returned to their own matters. Soon, they heard that the Aeolian Empire was attacking. The Mountain Rock people felt quite startled and instantly understood what was going on. They hurriedly gathered their forces and flew towards the defensive walls, wanting to stop the Aeolian Empire. Swish! 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 The sky above the defensive walls had become azure, and countless wind god soldiers condensed wind blades that gave off sharp auras before quickly shooting out, leaving behind rays of azure light. There were not many Mountain Rock people defending the defensive walls, and facing this wave of attacks, they immediately activated their defenses. Stone walls formed in front of the Mountain Rock people. Bang! 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 Deafening sounds rang out as the surroundings were dyed azure. Wind blades slashed against the stone walls, and the sturdy stone walls could not hold on for much longer. They were slashed apart by the wind blades, and sharp gusts of wind ferociously blew out. The Mountain Rock people behind the stone walls were greatly startled, and they hurriedly used their power to cause their bodies to turn into stone. Chi, chi, chi! Sharp green wind blades slashed past, easily cutting open the bodies of the Mountain Rock tribe members. In just an instant, an intact Mountain Rock tribe member was cut into countless pieces. Blood splattered everywhere, and internal organs spilled everywhere. The tough stone walls were unable to withstand the sharpness of the wind blade. Most of the soldiers on the defensive walls were killed, and only a small portion remained. Feng Xinsha gave the order to attack, and countless wind god soldiers dressed in azure armor rushed forwards like an azure gale. As expected, the wind god soldiers were able to easily break through the Mountain Rock world's defenses. By now, countless people had gathered in the Mountain Rock world, but they were unable to change anything. The powerful wind god soldiers charged towards them, and the Mountain Rock people were unable to stop them. In the end, some Mountain Rock people surrendered and some chose to run, and the battle ended with the Aeolian Empire's complete victory. This time, Feng Xinsha did not use Stage 3 soldiers to suppress the Mountain Rock world, and she instead used wind god soldiers that she had nurtured for many years. She was very satisfied with the results, as expected from the wind god soldiers she had nurtured for so long. Following this, Feng Xinsha ordered her soldiers to quickly conquer regions and kill anyone who dared to resist, taking control of the Mountain Rock world as quickly as possible. The Alliance's forces were gathered at the front, and if Qin wanted to stop the Devil Horn Empire and the Aeolian Empire, they would immediately interfere and ensure that those two factions rose to royal kingdoms. Chapter 23-29. Qin immediately received news of the two worlds being destroyed, but he did not do anything. Even though Qin had a large number of gold refiner soldiers and terrifying gold refiner saint beasts, the alliance was made up of 30 or so worlds, and they were not so easy to deal with. Even if Qin attacked, the effects would not be obvious. On the other side, because Qin had just become a royal kingdom, he had many things to take care of and things to build. As such, he would need to stabilize and develop for a period of time. Once Qin stabilized and found an opportunity to deal with the alliance, it would be time for Qin to act. With Qin's current strength, only Qin would act first. With the alliance's courage, they would not dare to attack Qin first. The alliance army at the front let out a sigh of relief. They had gathered countless soldiers and made all sorts of defensive measures to stop Qin. However, even after making so many defensive measures and having so many soldiers, they did not have much confidence. The feeling that Qin gave them was too terrifying, and who knew if he was still hiding his strength. It was for the best that Qin did not attack them. They did not want to fight with Qin now. Following this, they quickly received news of the two worlds being destroyed, and they all smiled. Now it was time to split up the resources of the two worlds. Even though those two worlds were part of the alliance and they were going to sell them, who would go against their own interest? The Pigman world. The Devil Horn army had already taken control of this world, and there were pigmen corpses everywhere. Blood spurted everywhere, and a thick stench of blood spread out, causing people to feel nauseous. Yao Ming sat on a throne in a palace, and some pigmen people knelt on the ground in terror. Some of them were dragged out and killed, and their bodies were chopped into pieces, causing blood to flow all over the ground. There were also some pigmen women who were being pressed down on the ground by many devil horn generals. Some of the pigmen women cooperated in fear, while others cried and begged for mercy. There was no beauty in this scene. The savage devil horn generals, the pigmen women, and what they were doing all gave off a feeling of hell. In the mountain stone world, Feng Xinsha sat on a throne and smiled as she looked at the mountain stone people kneeling below. She ordered a few handsome-looking men to be dragged out and cut off their genitals. She planned to properly train them and raise them into male dogs. Feng Xinsha had always liked this kind of thing. Now there were a few silver chains in their hands, and a few handsome men were naked. They were squatting on the ground with their tongues out, squatting there like dogs. These were all male dogs that had been trained well. Not only did they move like dogs, but they also thought like dogs. Moreover, Feng Xinsha had trained them so that they were not weak at all and were instead quite strong. Boom! Boom! Two massive explosions sounded out at the same time as the two worlds' fate gathered and quickly flowed towards the Devil Horn faction and Wind God faction. The Devil Horn faction and Wind God faction quickly absorbed the fate and sent it into the two worlds. The fates of both sides fused together, and the Pigmen world and Mountain world officially became the territories of the Devil Horn Empire and the Aeolian Empire. Boom! Boom! Two explosions sounded out in the surroundings as the Devil Horn Empire and Wind God Empire's massive amounts of fate flooded into the two worlds' legacy stones. A violet legacy stone gave off boundless violet light, and a violet ray of light containing immense power shot into the sky, forming a violet pillar of light that dyed the sky violet. Boom! An explosion sounded out as a 10,000-meter-tall humanoid monster with long fur and a violet horn on its head appeared in the sky, giving off a massive aura. This was the Devil Horn Empire's Devil Horn King, which was the appearance of the Devil Horn Empire's nation armament. Roar! The Devil Horn King raised its head to the sky and gave a massive roar, causing the surroundings to tremble. A massive silver orb of light giving off powerful kingdom power appeared in the sky before slowly descending. In the end, the orb of light fell into the Legacy Palace and fused into the Legacy Stone. Waves of violet light continuously spread out, covering the entire Devil Horn Empire, and the entire Devil Horn Empire started to go through changes. An azure Legacy Stone gave off boundless azure light, and an azure ray of light brought with it berserk wind as it shot into the sky, forming an azure pillar of light. The sky was dyed azure, and wild gales blew out, sending countless rocks and leaves into the air. A 10,000-meter-long, slender, and graceful azure bird appeared in the sky. This azure bird was an azure fry and had two azure jade-like claws. It only had a single vertical eye on its head, and its pupil was also azure. It gave off a powerful wind. Scree! The azure bird raised its head to the sky and gave off a cry that pierced through the 9 heavens. A silver-white orb of light giving off immense power appeared in the sky before slowly descending and fusing into the Legacy Stone. Waves of azure light spread out, covering the entire Aeolian Empire. Everything in the Aeolian Empire gave off a faint azure light, and everything started to go through changes. Hearing these two massive explosions and sensing the two massive royal kingdom ripples, the surrounding 100 or so worlds felt incredibly shocked. What was going on in that direction? 3 factions had become royal kingdoms in a single day. This was simply too terrifying. Were royal kingdoms really that easy to level up? A domain had roughly 1,000 worlds, and there were only 10 or so royal kingdoms. Becoming a royal kingdom meant that one would become powerful, have great fate, powerful legacies, and all sorts of opportunities. There were definitely very few of these factions, or else there would not be so few royal kingdoms, and they would not be the most powerful factions in a domain. However, what was with that discovery? 3 royal kingdoms had suddenly appeared, so they could not help but feel shocked. As such, they felt quite curious about what had happened, and they sent people to investigate and understand what had happened. News quickly spread to the nearby domains, and the factions in those domains were also quite shocked. They had never thought that 3 royal kingdom factions would suddenly appear in a region. They had never seen such a thing before. They paid a great deal of attention to this matter, so they sent countless people to investigate. At the same time, they felt a trace of pressure. The ancient stem domain already had 21 royal kingdom factions, which was already a bit more than ordinary domains. Now that 3 more had appeared, the ancient stem domain's factions were more powerful than theirs, and they might be suppressed by the ancient stem domain in the future. This was quite disadvantageous to them, and if they could use some methods to weaken the ancient stem domain's factions, they would not mind. The factions in the inner regions of the ancient stem domain were not as shocked as the others. They knew that the Devil Horn domain and Wind God domain each had 9 worlds and were just a step away from becoming royal kingdoms. Chapter 23:30. Moreover, they had supported the 3 of them in the past, allowing them to quickly develop and become as powerful as them. The factions that had supported the Wind God and Devil Horn kingdoms smiled. Their judgment had not been wrong. Now, the Wind God and Devil Horn kingdoms had also become royal kingdoms, becoming existences on the same level as Qin. However, from the current situation, it seemed that Qin's faction was the most powerful, and the factions that had supported Qin had made the correct decision. Now, that faction had 3 royal kingdoms and an alliance, making the situation even more complicated. The destructive power and influence they had were many times greater than before. The ancient stem domain's people wondered if they should intervene in this region. After all, they belonged to the ancient stem domain, and in the future, when they fought against other domains, the more royal kingdoms they had, the greater their advantage would be. If the 3 factions could peacefully coexist, it would be a good thing for the ancient stem domain. If the 3 factions attacked each other, the ancient stem domain's overall strength would be depleted. They understood that the other domain's factions would interfere, so they sent out their ambassadors to see if they could mediate their relationship and prevent the other domain's factions from interfering. After the Fire Kingdom heard that the 3 factions had become royal kingdoms, its expression became even more serious. This was especially so after Qin had become a royal kingdom, becoming an existence on the same level as them. The threat that Qin posed to them was many times greater, and they mainly relied on their foundations. Otherwise, they would not have any advantage at all. Within Qin's palace, women's lewd voices sounded out. Zhao Fu was ravaging 10 or so forest race women, and all of them were extremely beautiful. Among them was Sen Yin, and a voluptuous and flirtatious woman. She was the wife of the big man from before. There was also a slim and beautiful woman who gave off a cold and gloomy aura. She was the elderly man's daughter. The remaining women all had similar statuses. Some were other people's wives, daughters, and mothers. Some of their relatives had been killed, while others had submitted to Qin. Sen Yin, who was riding on Zhao Fu's body, lay paralyzed in Zhao Fu's embrace. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile as he hugged her, and Sen Yin's face was red as she panted in Zhao Fu's embrace. They had never thought that just a moment ago, they would be Great Qin's enemies fighting against Great Qin, and in the next moment, they would be under Zhao Fu being ravaged by him. Your Majesty, Lu Yuexian, Zhang Shuyun, and Yang Yuyan want to see you. A soldier's voice came from outside the door. The ones guarding outside were all female soldiers, and all of them were quite good-looking, which helped to avoid the awkwardness. As for the reason for the awkwardness, there was no need to explain it. Everyone should understand. Zhao Fu thought for a moment, then put on a robe and let the 3 of them in. Yang Yuyan and the other two nervously entered the hall. Seeing the beautiful women lying on the ground and gasping for breath, they naturally understood what had just happened. They saluted Zhao Fu and said, "Greetings, Your Majesty." Zhao Fu sat on the throne with one arm around Serene. He looked at the three of them with a teasing smile and said, "You're here because of Li Baiqing, right? I'm sorry to disappoint you again this time. Li Baiqing was defeated by Qin and has fled back to the Fire Country." The three of them had indeed come for Li Baiqing. They had thought that Li Baiqing would lead an army to attack Qin and save them from their misery. Their relatives, who were suffering in prison, would also be freed. However, things were not that simple. Li Baiqing had been defeated by Qin in the end. They knew that Li Baiqing was no match for Zhao Fu, and they began to make plans for the future. They were especially worried that Li Baiqing would fall into Zhao Fu's hands. With Zhao Fu's personality, he would definitely think of all kinds of ways to torture him. Everyone in the Li family would fall into his hands, and there would be no hope. Lu Yuexian gave a charming smile and said, "Your Majesty, we always believed that you would win, and our hearts are on Qin's side. Don't misunderstand us." Zhao Fu did not believe her at all and laughed as he said, "Then why have you come here?" Lu Yuexian looked at Zhang Shuyun and Yang Yuyan, who blushed. It was evident that they had discussed this before coming here. They walked up, and Zhang Shuyun and Yang Yuyan sat next to Zhao Fu. Zhang Shuyun shyly held Zhao Fu's arm, while Lu Yuexian sat in Zhao Fu's arms and put her arms around the back of Zhao Fu's neck, as she said seductively, "Your Majesty, it's been so many years, and our relatives have been suffering in prison. Is your anger still not appeased?" Zhao Fu coldly looked at Lu Yuexian and said, "What do you think?" Lu Yuexian was not surprised by Zhao Fu's attitude and continued to say seductively, "Your Majesty, since you're still angry, please vent your anger on the three of us. We'll satisfy you." Zhang Shuyun said with a red face, "As long as Your Majesty lets go of Li Baiqing, my husband, and the others, you can do whatever you want to me." Yang Yuyan also said with a red face, "As long as you agree to our request, I'll be willing to be your woman and serve you, and I'll sever all ties with Li Baiqing in the future." Lu Yuexian smiled charmingly and asked, "What do you think, Your Majesty? You can torture us as much as you want. Isn't it the best way to vent your anger on us?" Hearing this, Zhao Fu looked at the seductive Lu Yuexian, who was Li Baiqing's grandmother and Li Shan's wife. He smiled and played with the thing on her chest as he asked, "Like this?" Lu Yuexian was pleasantly surprised and excited, and her body reacted greatly. She enjoyed this feeling and said lewdly, "That's right. Your Majesty, this is how it is. Let out all your resentment. I want you to be like this." Zhang Shuyun and Lu Yian blushed when they saw Lu Yuexian's debauchery. However, they stayed by Zhao Fu's side and enjoyed Zhao Fu's aura very much, and their bodies also reacted greatly. Since the last time, they couldn't help but fantasize about Zhao Fu. Now they were also very happy. Since Zhao Fu was willing to vent his anger on them, their lives in the future would become very good. Their relatives in prison would also be released, and everything would become better. However, Zhao Fu, who had a smile on his face, suddenly became cold. He stretched out his hand and pushed the lewd Lu Yuexian to the ground as he said contemptuously, "You're really cheap." After falling to the ground, Lu Yuexian did not get angry. Instead, she smiled lewdly and threw herself under Zhao Fu and began to serve Zhao Fu. Zhang Shuyun and Yang Yuyan also seized this opportunity to squat under Zhao Fu and serve Zhao Fu with Lu Yuexian. But in the next moment, Zhao Fu waved his hand and a force sent the three of them flying. Zhao Fu stretched out a hand with a cold face, and an invisible force grabbed Lu Yuexian's throat and lifted her up from the ground. Chapter 23:31. Lu Yuexian felt as if her throat was going to break, and she found it difficult to breathe. She understood that Zhao Fu wanted to kill her, but Lu Yuexian angrily screamed, "Hurry up and kill me, I've had enough of these days. We're despicable, but what else do you want from us?" Zhang Shuyun and Yang Yan knelt on the ground and cried, "Your Majesty! We only did this because we knew we were in the wrong and were willing to bear the consequences. We just hope that you can give us a chance. If you can vent your anger by killing us, then kill us." Zhao Fu's expression was cold as he said, "Do you think I won't kill the three of you?" Two more waves of power rushed out and grabbed Zhang Shuyun and Yang Yuyan's throats, lifting them up as well. They could not breathe, and their faces became red. Sin Yin could not bear to watch any more and hugged Zhao Fu as she said, "All right, don't be angry and let them off. All right, don't be angry and let them off this time." Zhao Fu looked at the three of them who were about to suffocate and coldly said before letting go of them. The three of them sat on the ground, panting loudly and feeling afraid. They had been just a step away from death. Zhao Fu's expression was cold as he put on his clothes and left. Lu Yuexian and the other two thanked Sin Yin gratefully. If it wasn't for her, they might have been killed by Zhao Fu. Most importantly, if their deaths could free their loved ones, they would rather die. But the opposite was true. Not only would their deaths not free their loved ones, Sin Yin was also putting on her clothes and lightly laughed. "No need. I quite admire the three of you for being willing to give up everything for your loved ones, but I'm a bit curious. You three look quite good, so why won't he favor you?" Lu Yuexian briefly explained what had happened. Sin Yin understood and smiled as she said, "It's impossible for you to obtain his favor. Even though he's dissolute, he has a bottom line. You just touched his bottom line, which is why he wanted to kill you. If you continue like this, no one will be able to save you." Lu Yuexian understood and nodded. "I know that, but I thought that he would break his bottom line. As long as he's willing to have a relationship with me, everything will be easy to deal with, which is why I did this. Now that we've served him, he still refuses to have sex with us. It seems impossible. We won't do such a thing again." Sin Yin said with a smile, "Actually, you don't have to use this method to achieve your goal. You should care more about him and use your actions to warm his heart. Maybe he will let your family go." Lu Yuexian and the other two nodded in agreement. As soon as Zhao Fu returned to the main hall, he received a lot of news. Now that the three factions had become royal kingdoms, it had shaken everyone, and the various factions had sent envoys to express their goodwill. Not only were there royal kingdom factions from the ancient stem domain and other domains, but there were also other large and small factions. Among the three kingdoms, Qin was the strongest and also the one with the greatest potential. Naturally, most of the people had come. Now, they were all waiting for Zhao Fu to summon them outside the imperial palace. Zhao Fu did not refuse and allowed them to enter the palace. There were many people he was familiar with, such as the Ice Origin Kingdom's Bing Qixue, the Ancient God Sect's Gu Qingyue, the Volcano Sect's Huiyen, the Mystic Spirit Sect's Leng Shang, and even the number one beauty in the Ancient Stem Domain, the Heavenly Music Sect's Yin Ruoshi, had come. Last time, many royal kingdom factions had wanted to subdue Qin, and all of the large factions had come, except for the Heavenly Music Sect. Back then, the Heavenly Music Sect had understood that they would not be able to subdue Qin, so they had not come. This time, the Heavenly Music Sect understood how important this matter was and did not hesitate. The Heavenly Music Sect's legatee, Yin Ruoshi, had personally come. It could be seen how much importance the Heavenly Music Sect placed on Qin. However, there were also some people who had not come. The first was the Ancient Sword Sect's Jian Yin, the second was the Bear Mountain Kingdom's Xiongshao, and the third was the Eight Dragons Essence Sect's Long Yang. Last time, they had wanted to force Qin to submit to them, but Qin had not given them any face. There had been enmity between the two sides, and they still did not know Zhao Fu's true identity. If they had known who Zhao Fu was, they would have long since cut Zhao Fu into pieces. This time, they had gone to the Devil Horn Empire and the Aeolian Empire. Evidently, because of that enmity, they wanted to use the Devil Horn Empire and the Aeolian Empire to suppress Qin. Apart from the ancient stem domain, there were also some familiar people from the Green Province domain. For example, the cold-looking young man in red, Yi Kuang, was ranked 5th on the Green Province rankings. The dark-skinned and chubby young man was called Niu Hu, and he was ranked 4th on the Green Province rankings. The young sect master of the Bright Sword sect was ranked 3rd on the Greenwood rankings. There was also a handsome monk, Yu Quan, who was the young sect master of the Desire Buddha sect and was ranked 2nd on the Green Province rankings. He brought 10 or so beautiful and bewitching women with him, and he looked at Xianru, Tina Pendragon, Li Muqing, and the other women with a lewd gaze. Finally, there was the Poem Dynasty Shi Shuj, the #1 expert in the Green Province domain. Seeing that she had come, Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. He had never thought that Qin's fame would be so great that even the #1 faction in the Green Province domain would send people over. Everyone in the Green Province domain did not know Zhao Fu's true identity, and they thought that he was just the ruler of a royal kingdom at the border. Even though they valued Zhao Fu, they did not take him seriously. Seeing Zhao Fu sitting at the front, everyone immediately congratulated Zhao Fu for leveling up to a royal kingdom and said some words of praise to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile as he said, "I've received everyone's kind intentions, and I've ordered people to prepare a banquet to properly entertain everyone. Everyone can also have some fun in Qin City." Everyone else smiled. They were quite pleased with Qin's attitude towards them. They had heard that Qin was cruel and cold-blooded, and he was quite famous. They had been worried that Qin would not be easy to get along with. If Qin was too arrogant and cold-blooded, it would be quite difficult for them. In the end, it turned out that Qin was not as terrifying as the rumors said, and he was quite easy to get along with. Of course, no one dared to easily trust Qin. After all, if Qin was so easy to get along with, he would not have such a fierce reputation, nor would he be feared by everyone here. Perhaps Qin was a demon in human skin. Apart from befriending Qin, they also wanted to understand what kind of faction Qin was. They could also have some fun in Qin City and understand Qin. At the banquet, Zhao Fu simply entertained everyone, and everyone started to wander around Qin City, collecting all sorts of information about Qin. Bing Qixue and the others felt quite awkward at the banquet. Last time, they had come to subdue Qin, but in the blink of an eye, Qin City had become a royal kingdom and was on the same level as them. This time, they had come to befriend Qin City. Everyone was quite shocked by Qin's performance. Before, Qin City had been suppressed by a few factions, but now, he had turned the tables. His strength had become incredibly terrifying, and his future potential was unimaginable. They could not understand how Qin City had such great strength and potential, and there had always been a sense of mystery surrounding Qin City. Chapter 2332. There was something else that they were quite surprised about, which was the matter with Princess Qingmu and Jiu Shaoyun. Back then, they had seen Princess Qingmu and Jiu Shaoyun sitting next to Zhao Fu, looking incredibly intimate, as if they were husband and wife. Moreover, they were evidently not virgins. What's going on? These were two geniuses from the ancient stem domain, people that two large factions fancied the most. Why were they so willing to become his women? Back then, hadn't they said that they wanted to be the empress and could only have one woman? Why did they not want anything now? With their understanding of Princess Qingmu and Jiu Shaoyun, if they had not personally seen this, they would not have believed it. Back then, the two of them had stayed with Qin and had not left. Perhaps these women, who were called Zhao Fu, knew some massive secrets about Qin. Bing Qixue and Gu Qingyue called the two of them to the side. Gu Qingyue looked quite confused as she asked, "How did you two become his women? Did you obtain some sort of secret from Qin?" Princess Qingmu proudly said, He has the qualifications to become our husband. As for the secret, of course we know, but we won't tell you." Everyone felt quite shocked. Even though they did not know what secret it was, seeing how Princess Qingmu was willing to become Zhao Fu's woman, it was definitely a massive secret. However, it was evident that Princess Qingmu would not tell them this secret. This made them even more curious as to what terrifying things Qin was hiding. From Princess Qingmu's tone, it seemed that Qin's legatee was quite terrifying. Bing Qixue looked at Jiu Shaoyun and said, "You're even more beautiful than before, and your fate is even more powerful. Your constitutions have also greatly improved. Even though you're not willing to say it, you've most likely obtained great benefits from Qin." Jiu Shaoyun lightly laughed as she said, "That's right. We've obtained great benefits, and Qin is an existence that you can't even imagine. I advise you to be careful in the future and not offend Qin. Don't say that we did not warn you." Bing Qixue and the others' expressions became quite serious. Jiu Shaoyun knew just how powerful their faction was, and yet she was telling them to be careful. This meant that things were much more terrifying than they had imagined. They placed the most importance on Qin. They also wanted to know more about Qin. However, Qing Mu and Jiu Shaoyun did not say anything. This made them feel very uncomfortable. Everyone looked at Yin Ruoshi. She was the most powerful person here and the top genius in the ancient STEM domain. She was originally ranked third, but the person in first place was nowhere to be found, and the person in second place had gone crazy. Now, she was the only one left. Yin Ruoshi said seriously, "Qin is hiding too many things. If you don't become Qin's man, it's impossible to know Qin's true colors. So let's not waste time. We have no conflict of interest with Qin, so we'd better not get involved with him in the future." Bing Qixue and the others nodded. They could not see Qin's true appearance, so they could only not offend Qin. They also planned to report this matter to their superiors, asking them to pay more attention to Qin and not to be careless. Jiu Shaoyun smiled as she said, "If you become Qin's man, you'll know Qin's secrets. Yin Ruoshi, you can also become our husband's woman. Not only will you know Qin's secrets, but you'll also be able to enjoy extreme happiness every day." Qing Mu's face became red and she said shyly, "Jiu Shaoyun, why aren't you ashamed to say such a thing?" Jiu Shaoyun lightly laughed as she said, "What's there to be ashamed about? Don't you enjoy it as well? Moreover, Yin Ruoshi will become husband's woman sooner or later." Qing Mu's face became red and she punched at Jiu Shaoyun. Jiu Shaoyun smiled as she blocked Qing Mu's punch, and the two of them started to play around. This had not changed from before, and everyone could not help but feel envious of their relationship. Everyone else naturally understood what was going on. They had heard about this, and it seemed that the rumors were not wrong at all. Yin Ruoshi's face became slightly red, but she did not think that she would become Zhao Fu's woman. She did not have any feelings for Zhao Fu. Elsewhere, the people from the Qingzhou province domain had gathered together, and Yu Quan evilly smiled as he said, "I heard that there are many beauties in the Qin Empire. Now that I've seen them for myself, they're all great beauties. I'm quite envious of that boy." Shi Shuj glanced at him and said, "I advise you to be more honest. Qin's imperial prince is unfathomable, and if you offend him, you'll die a miserable death. Moreover, the Qin Empire is not simple, and all of the major factions attach great importance to it." Ming Jian agreed as he said, "That's right. I heard that Qin is incredibly terrifying, and no one has seen his true strength. He can deal with every crisis, and apart from possessing all sorts of terrifying methods, he has also grasped alchemy power and alchemy divine beast." Niu Hu said curiously, "I'm also quite curious about how Qin grasps alchemy power and alchemy divine beast. My faction sent me to gather information about this. If we can grasp this method, it will be very important to our faction, and we can even use it to resist the alchemy race." Yi Kuang said arrogantly, "What are you afraid of? Qin is just a faction that has just become a royal kingdom. With our factions we can easily destroy it. I think we should send a few armies over and force Qin to hand over the method. If he doesn't hand it over, we'll destroy it and take back all of its women and treasures." Yu Quan evilly smiled as he said, "I'll fully support this decision. Right now, I just want to do a few of Qin's concubines and have a taste of what they taste like. They're simply too alluring to me." Shuj frowned as she said, "If you want to seek death, don't drag us down with you. With Qin's current strength, the various factions will not be so stupid. Also, Qin once used a barrier that even 10 or so royal kingdoms would not be able to break through." Nyohu nodded as he said, "That's right. My faction is to properly befriend Qin and not forcefully obtain that method. I also won't offend Qin as much as possible." Hearing this, Yi Kuang felt quite disdainful as he said, "I don't understand what Qin has to fear. That barrier is definitely very precious, and Qin can only use it once. Moreover, it's impossible for Qin to hide in the barrier forever. Once the barrier is broken, we'll destroy Qin. Your elder feels quite displeased just looking at Qin's legatee." Nyohu lightly harumphed, "Do whatever you want to do. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not that stupid." Yi Kuang said furiously, "Are you saying that I'm stupid?" Nyohu said provocatively, "I'm saying that you're stupid." "What? If you want to fight, I'll accompany you anytime." Yi Kuang felt quite furious and wanted to explode out with power. Shuj's expression was cold as she said, "If you continue to act like this, don't blame me for being impolite. I don't want to attract Qin's attention right now." Hearing Shuj's words, the two of them calmed down. They understood how powerful Shuj was and that she could easily defeat them. Chapter 23:33. Everyone else was the same, and they gathered together to discuss matters regarding Qin. What they wanted the most was alchemy power. After all, this advantage was simply too great, and no one would not be moved. If they could obtain this power, not only would their defense increase, but their attack power would also increase. In the future, they would have a great advantage against enemies, and they would not have much of an advantage against the alchemy race. With this, they would no longer have to fear the alchemy race, and just thinking about it made them feel excited. Everyone walked around Qin Palace but did not gain anything. Qin would only show them images that he was willing to show them, and there were some places that they were not allowed to enter. In the end, everyone returned to Qin Palace. Even though they had gained some information about Qin, they were not satisfied. Within the palace, there was a gentle-looking young man who bowed to Zhao Fu and smiled as he said, "This lowly one is very curious about something, and I wonder if your majesty can answer me?" If your majesty can answer, this lowly one would be incredibly grateful. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he asked, "What is it?" The young man smiled as he said, "It is regarding Qin's alchemy power and alchemy divine beast. May I ask how one can obtain these two abilities that only the alchemy race can?" Hearing someone directly ask about Qin's alchemy power, everyone's minds trembled, and they pricked up their ears as they looked at Zhao Fu. This was undoubtedly the information that everyone wanted to know the most, and even Shuj and Bing Qixue were no exception. However, after thinking about it, everyone felt that it was impossible. Who would be so stupid as to tell others about such a secret technique? The person who had asked the question felt that it was quite stupid to even ask such a question. Zhao Fu sat on the throne and looked quite startled, but he was not too surprised. He had guessed that there would definitely be people coming for this matter. After all, Qin had relied on alchemy power to repel the Fire Kingdom and Devil Horn Empire. In response to the young man's question, Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "It's actually quite simple. You just have to create your own Philosopher's Stone and take over the alchemy race." Everyone looked quite confused. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would really be willing to tell them the reason. However, after hearing what Zhao Fu said, everyone couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. It was the same as not saying anything. How could the heaven-awakened world's people create the Philosopher's Stone? It was impossible for them to attack the alchemist family. Could it be that Great Qin knew that they couldn't do it, which was why it said such a thing to trick them? The gentle-looking youth said in pleasant surprise, "Then, may I ask if you can tell me the manufacturing method for the Philosopher's Stone and the method to attack an alchemist clan?" Everyone once again looked at Zhao Fu, their gazes filled with anticipation. Zhao Fu said with a smile, "I've told you the reason. As for the method, it's Qin's secret. I can't tell you." Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. At the same time, they could tell that Qin wasn't fooling them. It was because he had created the Philosopher's Stone that he possessed the power of alchemy, conquered an alchemist family, and owned an alchemist's sacred beast. However, how had Great Qin accomplished these two things that were impossible to do? The gentle youth was unwilling to give up. "Your Majesty, if you can tell me a way, I'm willing to pay a certain price. Your Majesty, please tell me. The entire Green Lake Kingdom will be grateful to you." The others also spoke. "Your Majesty, I'm also willing to pay a certain price to obtain these two methods. Our people will also be grateful to Your Majesty and see Your Majesty as our benefactor. Please tell us, Your Majesty." "Your Majesty, right now we're all being oppressed by the alchemist clan. These two methods are incredibly important to us. As long as Your Majesty agrees to tell us these two methods, we'll pay a sufficient price. Your Majesty, if you give us the method, Qin will forever be our friend. If Qin is in danger, we'll be the first to rush over. We definitely won't let Qin be in danger. Please trust us, Qin." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite disdainful. What good would it do to be grateful to him? What good would it do to treat him as their benefactor? As Qin's friend, Qin would come over if he was in danger and say nice things? Who would believe that? These two methods were obtained by Qin. The key was that if they gave them these two methods, Qin's advantage would be gone. When that time came, it was possible that these people would use the method that Qin had given them to destroy the Qin Empire. If that happened, who would pity Qin? Who would spare Qin? Everyone knew that there was not much hope, but they could not help but look at Zhao Fu in anticipation. Even though Zhao Fu felt quite disdainful, he still had a trace of a smile on his face as he said, "The method is Qin's secret. I'm sorry, but I can't tell you." Hearing this, everyone felt quite disappointed. However, at that moment, Zhao Fu said, "Since everyone has come to Qin, you'll be Qin's friends from now on. I'll give everyone some Philosopher's Stones." After speaking, Zhao Fu waved his hand and rays of light shot out, causing large wooden boxes to appear in front of everyone. Everyone felt quite delighted and couldn't help but go up and open the wooden boxes. Countless rays of green light shined out, and within the wooden boxes were green pearls that were as big as lychees, giving off alchemy power. This alchemy power was different from the alchemy power of the Heaven-Awakened world. It was the alchemy power of the Heaven-Awakened world. At first, everyone could not believe that someone from the Heaven-Awakened world could create a Philosopher's Stone. However, now that they had personally seen that Qin had not only created a Philosopher's Stone but also an alchemy stone from the Heaven-Awakened world, this was simply too amazing. There were dozens of wooden boxes, and everyone could not help but go up and take some before looking at them closely. They could not find the method, but obtaining a Philosopher's Stone was not bad either. If they brought it back and researched it, perhaps they would be able to find a way to create it. Shuj and Nether Spring also held a Philosopher's Stone and smiled as they looked at the Philosopher's Stone in their hands. Everyone was quite satisfied with this result. Suddenly, a round-faced young man laughed and said, "Qin is quite generous. Friend, what do you need to conquer the alchemy family? How about you give us some as well?" Zhao Fu felt that these words were quite disgusting. They really thought that Qin was a good person. He gave them everything and shamelessly wanted everything. Not only was he not satisfied with giving them the Philosopher's Stone, but he also wanted the method to conquer the alchemy family and control the holy beast. Everyone looked at Zhao Fu in anticipation. This time, Zhao Fu did not do as they wished, and he said with a trace of anger, "That's impossible. If you want to obtain the method, you should research it yourself. After you research it, I'll tell everyone about it." The round-faced young man looked quite awkward. How could he tell others about his faction's research? He understood that he had gone too far and had angered Zhao Fu, so he did not say anything else. Chapter 2334. Everyone understood that Zhao Fu was angry, so they naturally could not say those words. Instead, they thanked him, saying, "Thank you, Qin, for giving us the Philosopher's Stone. We are now Qin's friends. In the future, if Qin needs anything, you can look for them." Suddenly, someone couldn't help but ask, "Is Qin willing to sell the Philosopher's Stone? I am willing to buy it for a high price." This person knew that it was impossible to research the method to create the Philosopher's Stone. If they wanted to obtain the Philosopher's Stone, they could buy it. At that time, they would also have the Philosopher's Stone and would be even more powerful. Hearing this, everyone felt that the Philosopher's Stone was a good item. They immediately said, "I am also willing to buy it for a high price." The anger in Zhao Fu's heart disappeared, and a trace of a smile appeared on his face as he said, "Everyone here is Qin's friend. If everyone wants to buy the Philosopher's Stone, I can sell it for a suitable price. If your relationship with Qin is good enough, I can even give it to you for free." These words were clearly trying to win over people's hearts. Anyone who had a good relationship with Qin could obtain a free Philosopher's Stone. Who wouldn't want to have a good relationship with Qin? Ha ha ha, Qin is now my brother. Everyone can testify that if anything happens, I will be the first to arrive. I definitely won't be a minute late. I am also willing to be Qin's friend. As long as Qin wants something, I can give it to him. I've liked Qin from the start. Now that I've come to Qin and met Emperor Qin, I like Qin even more. Qin can definitely become my best friend. I don't want to say anything else, but Qin treats his friends too well. I will definitely take care of Qin as my friend. If Qin needs anything in the future, he can look for me. Yes, yes. I don't admire anyone else, but I admire Qin the most. It looks like I made the right choice this time. It's much better than going to the other two kingdoms." Zhao Fu smiled as he looked at the crowd below. He had achieved his goal. There were several reasons why Zhao Fu was doing this. The first was to make friends with various forces and strengthen Qin's momentum. Although they were not sure whether they would come to help Qin if he was in danger, with so many people as friends with Qin, ordinary forces would have to think twice before provoking Qin. In the future, when dealing with the Alliance Devil Horn and Wind God, this could be of great use and affect their decisions. Secondly, it was also to eliminate the hostility of all parties. Now, Qin already had a lot of opponents. There was no need to continue to increase the number of opponents, which was very disadvantageous to Qin's development. When he used alchemy power and the War Saint Beast, Zhao Fu had expected it to cause a sensation, so this wasn't surprising. Now that everyone was being suppressed by the alchemy world, it would be strange if anyone suddenly had the same ability as the alchemy world. After everyone found out that Qin had this ability, they would definitely be tempted and want to obtain it. Now that Qin had risen to a royal kingdom and was very powerful, a group of people would have long since come to snatch it. Zhao Fu had given them some Philosopher's Stones to weaken their jealousy and desire to snatch it, reducing their hostility and reducing the number of opponents. It was worth it to give them some Philosopher's Stones. Finally, the Philosopher's Stones weren't just given to them. There was something wrong with the Philosopher's Stones. It couldn't be said that there was something wrong with the Philosopher's Stones. There were no problems with the Philosopher's Stones, nor were there any restrictions. However, they had been created by Qin, and they contained time power that belonged solely to Qin. If others used the Philosopher's Stone, they wouldn't be able to sense anything, but Qin had a way to control the Philosopher's Stone and affect the user. Zhao Fu wasn't worried that anyone would find out that there was something wrong with the Philosopher's Stone because the Philosopher's Stone he had given them didn't have any problems at all. If Qin really did something to the Philosopher's Stone, with everyone's current strength, they would be able to sense it. This would infuriate everyone, and it would put Qin in a disadvantageous position. As such, even if he gave the Philosopher's Stones to the other side, Qin wouldn't suffer too much of a loss. Instead, it would be beneficial to him. In the future, if he used the Philosopher's Stone to deal with the other side, it would be very effective. This was a sinister method that Qin had used in the past. He had used the hidden evil pill to instantly cause the Orc City to lose all resistance, allowing Qin to easily take down the Orc City. However, as Zhao Fu's strength increased, hidden evil became useless and could be easily discovered. As such, Qin no longer used it, and hidden evil left the stage of history. In the end, Zhao Fu didn't want to give the Philosopher's Stones to the other side too obviously. If he gave the Philosopher's Stone too easily, the other side would definitely become suspicious. Now, everyone was saying that they wanted to be friends and brothers with Qin. Zhao Fu ordered people to take out spatial rings and gave them to everyone as he smiled and said, "Since everyone treats Qin as a friend and brother, I won't be stingy. Each spatial ring contains 300,000 Philosopher's Stones, and I'm giving them to everyone. If everyone is willing to help Qin in the future, he can have as many Philosopher's Stones as he wants, and he can also give them War Saint Beasts." Whoosh! Zhao Fu's words caused an uproar, and everyone revealed excited smiles. Now, 300,000 Philosopher's Stones could create 300,000 alchemist soldiers. Even though this was only a small portion of a faction's forces, they would at least have alchemist soldiers and hope of resisting the alchemists. More importantly, if they could maintain a good relationship with Qin in the future, they would have as many Philosopher's Stones as they wanted, and they would even receive War Saint Beasts. Only an idiot wouldn't be happy and excited. Everyone couldn't help but praise Zhao Fu, promising that they would be Qin's best friend and most reliable brother. The scene was quite lively, and it seemed like they really were good friends and brothers. However, Zhao Fu wasn't so stupid as to trust these people so easily. At the same time, some people felt suspicious, such as Shi Shuj and Yin Ruoshi. They faintly felt that Qin's goal wasn't simple. Was he really going to give such an important Philosopher's Stone to him for free? And he could even give them War Saint Beasts? Although they also felt suspicious, they wouldn't say it out loud. They planned to bring the Philosopher's Stone back and hand it over to the experts above them. They wanted to see if they could see the problem with the Philosopher's Stone and if they could discover the most important method to create it. After the gathering continued for a while, everyone happily left Qin's stone and reported the news to everyone else. The news also quickly spread. As long as one went to Qin, they would receive a Philosopher's Stone. Qin was too friendly. Qin was my friend and brother, and I heard that he had a good relationship with Qin. There was even a War Saint Beast. The Philosopher's Stone and all sorts of treasures could be taken. Chapter 2335. Hearing this news, all the factions became excited and gathered around Qin. At first, they didn't believe it. After all, how could such an important thing be given to others so casually? However, they did get the Philosopher's Stone. Although there were only tens of thousands of Philosopher's Stones, they would definitely get them if they went. Ha ha ha, I'm so happy. Such a good thing, everyone can have a share. Qin is too good. I like Qin a lot. I heard that Qin is terrifying and cruel, but I think it's all lies. Qin is a good person. From now on, Qin will be my friend. If anything happens to Qin, I'll be the first to go. Hee, I'm so happy. I'm not from any faction. Even if I go alone, I'll get a few Philosopher's Stones. Qin is so good. Now I want to join Qin. This time, I'm on Qin's side. I support Qin. I heard that he has a good relationship with Qin. He even got a Saint War Beast. Just thinking about it makes me excited. That thing is too terrifying. It's a killing weapon in the alchemy world. Yeah. If I had a Saint War Beast, I could destroy a faction. Qin is really willing. Now I support Qin and received tens of thousands of Philosopher's Stones. There's no harm if there's no comparison. Qin is so generous and gave us so many benefits. The other two kingdoms are so stingy. No wonder they can't defeat Qin. I support Qin too. Qin is mighty. Ah, Qin, I love you. Qin is my brother. Qin is so good. The various factions in the other two kingdoms had naturally heard of this news as well. Since they had come to these two factions, they naturally wanted to support these two factions. Some people didn't have any opinions about Qin. When they heard that they could get benefits by going to Qin, and most importantly, the Philosopher's Stone, they couldn't help but be moved. They went to Qin and said the following: "Congratulations to Qin for becoming the king. Qin is also my friend from now on. Qin is so generous. I recognize him as my brother. Qin is really good. I like Qin." These people changed their attitude too fast. Just now they were saying that they supported the other two forces, and they didn't appreciate Qin, didn't think highly of Qin, and even looked a little disgusted. Now that there were benefits to be had, they ran over to lick Qin with the dogs. It was really disgusting. The Devil Horn Empire and Aeolian Empire's expressions were quite unsightly. Most people were attracted to Qin, and only a small portion of people were willing to support them. Some of these people trusted the two forces very much, some hated Qin very much, and some had grudges against Qin. Jian Yin said coldly within the Aeolian Empire's palace, "Qin is too despicable. If I control the ancient sword sect, I'll destroy him first." A cold-looking young man next to him frowned and said, "I also don't like Qin, which is why I supported the Aeolian Empire. I never thought that Qin would use such a move." That faction couldn't resist the temptation of benefits and befriended Qin. It'll be too difficult to destroy him. A square-faced big man sighed. Now that Qin has such an aura, who dares to offend him? It's not wise to oppose him. Feng Xinsha said with a serious expression, "Everyone, please believe in the Aeolian Empire. Don't forget that the first wind god is in the central region. Right now, it's being restricted by a few factions. Once it breaks free, it will be the time for the Aeolian Empire to destroy Qin." The Aeolian Empire was already under a lot of pressure from Qin, and now that they had to use this move, Feng Xinsha felt that the pressure was too great. She could only use the Aeolian Empire to stabilize the others so that she would not be at a disadvantage. She also wanted to give the item to everyone like Qin and win their support. However, she didn't have the Philosopher's Stone, so she couldn't attract everyone's support. Looking at Feng Xinsha's beautiful face, Jianin felt quite moved and said, "Feng Xinsha, you're quite beautiful. Don't worry, I'll do my best to convince the ancient sword sect to support the Aeolian Empire. Right now, the ancient sword sect is the #1 faction in the ancient STEM domain, and no one dares to offend them." Sensing Jianin's gaze, Feng Xinsha understood that he somewhat liked her. Looking at Jianin's cold and handsome face, Feng Xinsha felt quite moved. If she could raise him into a male dog, it would be quite a good achievement. However, she could not say this. If the ancient sword sect could support the Aeolian Empire, it would be of great benefits. Feng Xinsha gave a trace of a smile and said, "Thank you." Seeing Feng Xinsha's beautiful smile, Jianin could not help but smile, feeling quite happy. On the Devil Horn Empire's side, Yao Ming felt a headache. They were evidently at a disadvantage, and the most important thing was how to defend against and destroy that damned Qin. Xiong Xiao felt quite angry. That Qin is so damned annoying. Your elder wants to destroy it and crush that Qin's legatee's head into the ground. Long Yang also said furiously, "I also want to kill that Qin's legatee, but I never had the chance. Now that he's using such a disgusting move, how should we deal with him? If he continues to develop like this, it won't be good for us." A bald man angrily called out, "What should we do then? That bastard Qin has the Philosopher's Stone, but we don't, so we won't be able to attract anyone's support. Also, those people are so disgusting. As soon as there are benefits, they'll run over like dogs." Yao Ming looked at the people present and suddenly smiled as he said, "Everyone here is the Devil Horn Empire's true friends and brothers. There's no need for those lowly people. After all, they're only after some benefits and won't truly support the Devil Horn Empire." Xiong Xiao gave a trace of a smile. "We're both from the devil race, so I'll naturally support you. That Qin's legatee is too arrogant. Even if he's destroyed, he deserves it." Long Yang also smiled as he said, "That's right, those who go are just joking around. Even though Qin's aura is powerful, his true strength will not increase by much. We can still destroy Qin. I'll have the 8 Dragons Essence sect support the Devil Horn Empire." Yao Ming gave a trace of a smile. "Thank you, Brother Long." Long Yang smiled as he said, "It's no problem, but I have a request. If we can take down Qin, all of Qin's women will belong to me." Right now, Long Yang could not be sure whether or not Zhao Fu was the person who had defiled his 7 beloved women in front of him. He only felt that it seemed like Zhao Fu was wearing a cloak. However, regardless of whether or not Zhao Fu was the person, he was going to defile and torture those women. Back then, he had personally seen that man defiling his women and doing all sorts of things to them. His beloved women had been defiled to the extreme by him, and it was like a knife cutting into his flesh. The intense pain was unforgettable. He would never forget this, so he wanted to take revenge on everyone related to this. He would not let off even those who were suspicious. Chapter 2336. The bald man lightly laughed as he said, "So Brother Long likes them too. The Qin Imperial Palace has countless peerless beauties. I wonder how that bastard got so many beauties. Even I want to go in and enjoy them." Xiong Xiao laughed as she said, "Long Yang, can you handle so many women by yourself? Even if you cultivate the 8 origin dragon sex art and have powerful abilities like a dragon, you won't be able to handle so many peerless beauties." Long Yang laughed as he said, "If you like those women, then let's play together. I heard that all of you are quite strong in that area and have devil race constitutions." Yao Ming loudly laughed. "If we can destroy Qin, then everything will be fine. I recommend Tina Pendragon. Her aura is too unique, and I've always wanted to press her under me and do her. I want to see her struggle and despair." The bald man also loudly laughed. "Then it's a deal. When we take down Qin, we'll enjoy his women." The Alliance's side secretly gathered to discuss. Their expressions were quite unsightly because the development of the situation was completely different from what they had expected. Before, they had wanted the Devil Horn Empire and Aeolian Empire to level up to royal kingdoms and increase their resistance against Qin. Their alliance was the strongest, so the Devil Horn Empire and Wind God Empire should be the leader. The Devil Horn Empire and Wind God Empire did not object to this. However, now that the various factions had interfered, it looked like there were only the Alliance, Devil Horn Empire, Wind God Empire, and Qin. In actuality, it was completely chaotic, and they had lost control of the situation. It seemed like no one could make decisions here, and if someone did something, the various factions would directly affect them and restrict their actions. The key was that with so many factions interfering, they could not resist at all. Now that the Devil Horn Empire and Aeolian Empire both had much support, they no longer had to rely on the Alliance. They were now 2 existences on the same level as the Alliance, and they felt that they were quite a threat. They felt that they should not have allowed the Devil Horn Empire and Wind God Empire to become royal kingdoms, drawing the attention and support of the various factions. They felt that Qin, Devil Horn, and Wind God Empire were quite powerful, and even though they had many people, they did not care about any of them. Everyone else went to visit those three factions. This was why the alliance members gathered together with ugly expressions. We really shouldn't have allowed the Devil Horn Kingdom and the Wind God Kingdom to become kingdoms. Now we feel like we've raised two vicious tigers. Not only do we have to worry about Qin, but we also have to worry about them. Didn't we sign a contract with them before? Since both sides can't attack each other, there should be no need to worry about them. We just need to focus on dealing with Qin. I will only be at ease if they are weak and focus on the alliance. Otherwise, I really can't be at ease with just this contract. If they find a way to break this contract, what should we do? You're right. Power is everything. Contracts are meaningless and don't feel that reliable. Letting the two of them become kingdoms was indeed a mistake. We shouldn't have coveted that little bit of benefit. There's no point in regretting it now. Let's focus on how to stop the three of them. The three of them are currently suppressing us. I feel that because of the contract, our opponent is still Qin. Now that Qin has made friends with many people and is powerful, he is the most difficult one to deal with. We should deal with him first. At the same time, we should deal with Devil Horn and Wind God. That's what I'm thinking as well. Let them attack each other and exhaust each other before we destroy the three of them. When that time comes, this region will be peaceful. Let's make this decision then. Also, don't let Devil Horn and Wind God know about this. Also, we have to be united. If we split up, we won't have the power to stop the three kingdoms. I agree with this. We have to be united. The three of them might use benefits to divide us, but we have to hold on. If we can't hold on, we'll lose everything. After returning to their factions, the various factions excitedly researched the Philosopher's Stone that they had obtained from Qin. If they could grasp this method, it would be of great benefit to their entire faction. However, the Philosopher's Stone was not as easy to research as they had expected. It seemed to contain laws from another world, which were quite difficult to comprehend. It was a law from another world, and it would be easier for people from the alchemy world to comprehend it. The various factions had captured people from the alchemy world and had them comprehend this law, but they did not understand it. This law was not their alchemy world's law and was an imitation of the alchemy world's law from the Heaven Awakened world's power. Hearing this, the various factions felt quite frustrated. In actuality, they had researched their Philosopher's Stone and knew the principles behind it, but they were unable to create it. The alchemy world could not create the Philosopher's Stone, as the Philosopher's Stone was their innate talent. After cultivating for a while, they would obtain it. However, how could Qin dispel this alchemy world's innate talent? Qin was not simple at all. Now that they knew the reason, they understood how powerful and mysterious Qin was. They could not rush this matter, and could only take it slow. Perhaps one day they would be able to find a way to create the Philosopher's Stone. Before that, the various factions decided to maintain friendly relations with Qin in order to obtain the Philosopher's Stone from him. The various factions would not easily research the Philosopher's Stone for Qin and find that there were no problems with it before giving it to their soldiers. Moreover, they would not give it to all of their soldiers. After all, it was something that Qin had created and given to them. At the same time, they wanted to obtain the method to create the Philosopher's Stone from Qin and the method to attack the alchemy world. They were all quite tempted by how powerful the alchemy god beasts were. The various factions purposefully tried to get on good terms with Qin, causing Qin's aura to become incredibly terrifying. No one dared to offend him. Zhao Fu did not care too much about these things. He first had his factions develop and stabilize before planning to deal with the alliance. Right now, Zhao Fu felt that the greatest threat was the alliance. Zhao Fu felt that he could deal with the Devil Horns and Wind Gods, but the alliance had too many people, which gave Qin a lot of pressure. Zhao Fu wanted to be the first to deal with it. After dealing with it, things would become much easier. If they clashed head-on with the alliance, Qin would suffer massive losses. As such, he could not use forceful methods and had to use gentler method. Zhao Fu ordered people to gather information on all of the alliance's factions and looked through them. He also called Li Si and Bai Qi to accompany him, and the three of them looked through the information and discussed the alliance. A few days later, Zhao Fu, who was talking with Li Si and Bai Qi in the palace, suddenly heard a massive sword hum. He thought of something and smiled as he left the palace. Chapter 23:37. Zhao Fu came to a very large piece of flat land. The ground was covered with black soil, and there was not a single plant growing there. It seemed quite deathly silent. There were large swords that were 2 meters long and 30 centimeters wide, and they were 5 different colors. The large swords were all over the ground, giving off 5-colored light as well as sword hums that tore through the surroundings. A massive sword aura covered everything, causing the heavens and earth to seem to change color and all things to fall silent. This was an extremely sharp feeling that caused people's hearts to feel icy coldness and their hairs to stand on end. It was incredibly terrifying and no one could resist it. Shing, 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 the sword hums became even more ear-piercing as the 2-meter-long 5-colored swords continuously trembled. The 5-colored sword light they gave off became more and more powerful, and a formless sword energy flooded out in all directions. In that moment, heaven and earth power quickly gathered, gradually forming a massive vortex in the sky. As heaven and earth power continuously flowed into it, the vortex became larger and larger, covering the surrounding 1,000 kilometers. It gave off a massive might, as if a massive boulder was weighing down on one's body. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out as the huge whirlpool began to spin. Waves of world energy descended and poured into the huge swords one after another. Shing, 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 massive sword hums sounded out as the swords gave off blinding sword light, exploding out with terrifying sword energy. It was unstoppable and covered the entire world. In the face of this massive sword energy, countless people were like lowly ants, filled with despair and fear. Zhao Fu felt quite shocked. Looking at the large swords giving off boundless sword light, he felt that they were so powerful. The sword light lasted for a while before it started to weaken, and the massive sword energy dissipated. In the end, floating large swords appeared. They faced downwards and floated 1/2 meter in the air, giving off faint 5-colored sword light and powerful sword energy. These were the 5 elements sword embryos that Zhao Fu had been developing for a long time. No, it was not the 5 elements sword embryos, but the 5 elements flying swords. The flying swords of the 5 elements was Gong Sun Zhu's plan. His goal was to create flying swords like those in the cultivation world. They would be able to unleash unimaginable sword power and strengthen a terrifying killing move for Qin. Zhao Fu also had an illusion of a sky full of flying swords, so he was very supportive of this plan. The 5-elemental sword embryo was formed from 5 different materials: black iron essence, wood root copper, water ore, fire stone steel, and earth spirit oregon. The 5 materials were also of the metal attribute, but they contained the power of the 5 elements, which were metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. 5 types of materials were used to forge the 5 elements sword embryo. After that, countless rune stone formation masters carved all kinds of runes and arrays. Then, alchemy materials were integrated into it, and souls were integrated into it. Finally, after such a long period of nurturing, the 5 elements flying swords were formed. As for the 5 elemental sword embryo, it was a very powerful forging technique passed down in the Gongsun family. These 5 elements flying swords weren't ordinary swords either. Instead, they were a new kind of sword-shaped life. In other words, these swords were living swords, not lifeless objects. Zhao Fu looked at Gunia and lightly smiled as he said, "Gunia, it's time to check on the results, bring them here." The 5 elements flying swords could only be controlled by sword cultivators, so Zhao Fu had Gunia nurture a large number of sword cultivators and let Gunia handle everything. A trace of a smile appeared on Gunia's cold face. He had nurtured these sword cultivators for so long, and he wanted to see the result. They most likely wouldn't disappoint His Majesty. "All of you, come forward." Gunia gave the order, and white-clothed people with cold expressions and giving off sword chi walked out. There were men and women, and there were 1,000 of them. The 1,000 sword cultivators came before the formless flying swords floating in the air. They could sense those large swords, and they felt quite nervous. They felt that they weren't inanimate objects and that they had their own lives. Everyone stretched out a hand and placed it at the center of the swords. A magic formation appeared on the swords, and the 5 elements flying swords gave off intense sword light. Chi, 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 the magic formation released an orb of metallic liquid, which turned into a long awl that pierced through the sword cultivator's hands. Blood continuously flowed out, and the flying swords devoured the blood. The sword cultivators endured the pain and allowed the flying swords to devour their blood. After a while, the flying swords finished absorbing the blood, and the awl melted back into liquid, filling the holes in their hands, and a circular sword mark appeared on the back of their hands. The sword cultivators were delighted to find that the swords floating in front of them seemed to fuse with them, and they could control them as if they were their own limbs. 10,000 sword art. The 1,000 sword cultivators performed hand seals, and the large swords turned into 5-colored rays of light that shot into the sky with powerful sword energy. The 10,000 sword art was a sword art that Gunia had created, and its main purpose was to control flying sword. Most sword cultivators practiced the 10,000 sword art the most, and they were quite familiar with it. The many flying swords stopped in the sky, and there were 1,000 of them. All of them gave off powerful sword lights, forming a terrifying sword aura. Waves of sword wind continuously blew out, causing the world to become icy cold. The sword aura was incredibly terrifying, and it seemed as if it could easily destroy the heavens and earth, making people feel quite terrified. The sword cultivators' gazes fell on an empty piece of land beside them, and they stretched out a hand and pointed. Shing, 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 the 1,000 large swords gave off rainbow-colored light and slashed down with terrifying power. Sword light shot everywhere, and a terrifying sword energy spread out, causing the ground to collapse and rocks to fly everywhere. After the shockwaves dissipated, a 10,000-meter wide and 100-meter deep crater appeared in the ground. There were 5 colored swords stabbed into the crater, and a sharp sword chi flowed out of the crater. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile. The 5 elements flying swords that he had painstakingly nurtured had not disappointed him, and their effects were incredibly terrifying. If 1,005 elements flying swords could give off such powerful destructive power, then how much destructive power would 10,000 or 100,000 flying swords be? Just thinking about this could cause anyone to feel fear. What was more important was that Great Qin was not nurturing 100,000 flying swords but 10 million of them. Just how much damage could they cause? The scene was naturally unimaginable, and Zhao Fu felt quite excited. However, because sword cultivators were quite difficult to nurture, Qin only had around 500 or so sword cultivators. Now that he had the 5 elements flying swords, the next step was to nurture sword cultivators. Otherwise, it would be quite awkward if no one used their weapons. Zhao Fu was not a sword cultivator, so he left all of this to Gunia. With the 5 elements flying swords, Qin would have another terrifying ability. This time, the main credit belonged to Gongsun Zhu and Gunia, and Zhao Fu would reward them later. Chapter 2338. Zhao Fu left the matters here to Gunia. The next step was for the sword cultivators to come here and let the flying swords recognize them as their masters. It was a 2.5-meter long sword. If a person stood on it, they would be able to fly into the sky and achieve the ability to fly on a sword. Moreover, if such a large sword were to strike down, even an ordinary soldier with a shield would be cleaved in half. The power of the 5 elements flying swords went without saying. They would have amazing performance on the battlefield. After everything was done, Qin would continue to nurture another batch of 5 elements flying swords. Zhao Fu felt that 10 million was a little small. If it could reach 100 million, it would be comparable to a huge army. After returning to Qin's palace, Zhao Fu had a preliminary plan to deal with the alliance. The first step was to divide the alliance. Zhao Fu sent out some night warriors. The night warriors were members of Eternal Night. Qin had 3 major intelligence organizations: Eternal Night, Flower Moon, and the White Sect. Eternal Night was in charge of assassinations and gathering intelligence. It was personally controlled by Zhao Fu. Flower Moon was given to Xiao Yuan, and the White Sect was given to Yi Chui. Letters were sent through the night warriors to some factions. These factions were naturally members of the alliance, but they were quite far away from Qin. There was no conflict of interest between the two sides. The contents of the letters simply stated that Qin had no ill intentions towards them. There was no great enmity between the two sides. They didn't have to choose to resist Qin. They could even be friends. Qin could even give them a large number of Philosopher's Stones. After the others read the letters sent by Qin, their faces were filled with disdain. They knew that Qin wanted to divide them and cause internal strife. Although a large number of Philosopher's Stones was tempting, they understood the current situation. They wouldn't choose to betray the alliance for the Philosopher's Stones. However, Qin's next words made them hesitate. You should know the current situation. If you dare to directly reject Qin, then Qin won't look for you. He will directly list you as people to be killed. Are you sure you want to cut off your own path of retreat? Seeing this, basically no one dared to directly reject Qin, unless he really didn't want to live. Qin had become the strongest force in this area. It was very likely that he could destroy them. Qin was not joking. If he said he would destroy them, he would destroy them. They also didn't want to cut off their escape route. Perhaps they could still save their lives at that time. He continued reading the contents of the letter. Even though they were quite far away from Qin, they were quite close to the Aeolian Empire and the Devil Horn Empire, so they were quite dangerous. Now that the Aeolian Empire and Devil Horn Empire had the support of other factions, they might attack them. When that time came, they could only rely on the alliance. However, the alliance was not as good as they thought. They clearly remembered how they had tricked the Pigman world and Mountain Rock world. If tricking them was beneficial to others, they would not mind doing so. At this time, Qin offered to help them, which tempted them. It meant that they would have one more choice. Moreover, Qin hated the Devilhorn Wind God the most, and the enemy of an enemy was a friend. It was possible that they could receive help from Qin. They might need Qin's help in the future, so they thought about it carefully and decided that they would neither agree to befriend Qin and betray the alliance, nor would they directly refuse Qin's trust in the alliance. Naturally, the news could not be leaked out, otherwise the consequences would be dire. They immediately ordered people to seal off the news and appointed a specialized person to take charge. At the same time, he sent some messages to Qin. We know what happened. Please give us something to consider, Qin. In fact, we like Qin very much. What they said was a little ambiguous, which expressed their intention. They didn't agree to Qin's request, nor did they reject it carelessly. They even gave Qin a friendly feeling. Zhao Fu sat in the main hall and looked at the letters in his hands. He smiled. Since this group of people had not refused, they had definitely taken the bait. Seeing Zhao Fu's smile, Wang Erge happily said, Your Majesty, I'm quite happy. What should we do next? Zhao Fu smiled as he said, We'll send a large number of philosopher's stones to these factions. Now, no one will be able to resist the temptation." Wang Ergu smiled as he said, "I'll be going now, Your Majesty." A while after Wang Ergu left, spatial rings were sent to the various factions. When the leaders of the various factions saw the spatial rings, they had some guesses. However, when they opened them, they were given a big fright. Oh my God, there were simply too many philosopher's stones. The leaders of these factions were not the lords of various worlds, but different factions in different worlds. They did not have the strength of a world lord. If the factions were too strong, Zhao Fu did not go and find them. They were quite confident and were at the core of the alliance, making it difficult for them to betray the alliance. If the factions were too weak, they would not be of much use, and Qin did not care about them. The factions that Qin had chosen were the most suitable ones. They were not at the core of the alliance and did not have any control over the alliance. They did not have 100% trust in the alliance, and they had enough strength to influence the alliance. Normally, they only had a few billion or so people and a few 100 million soldiers. Now that Qin had sent over 100 million philosopher's stones, how could they not be shocked? Most importantly, the philosopher's stones were very useful. Not only could they increase one's cultivation and strength, but they also had decent defense and attack power. Almost everyone wanted them and tried all sorts of methods to obtain them from Qin. However, they had not obtained much, and the price of the philosopher's stones had reached an even higher level. However, smart people would not sell them and would instead use them for themselves. Now that Qin had given each of them 100 million philosopher's stones, they understood how important Qin was to them, and they felt more confident. Since Qin placed so much importance on them, they had the right to bargain with Qin. They could make more requests and obtain more benefits, and they did not have to worry that Qin would suddenly attack them. At that moment, everyone started to hesitate. If they used the philosopher's stones, their faction's strength would greatly increase. However, if they used them, they would definitely be discovered by others, and the alliance would become suspicious. The alliance might even guess their relationship with Qin and might even attack them. They did not want to see that happen. They were in a dilemma and did not know what to do. They could only leave the philosopher's stones there. Of course, they could not send such a good thing back. On Zhao Fu's side, he quickly received news from the alliance and found out that they did not use the philosopher's stones. He was quite surprised because they had actually resisted the temptation of using something that could greatly increase their strength. Chapter 2339. Zhao Fu smiled and called over Yi Chuye. Yi Chuye, the bewitching woman, came to the palace and flirtatiously smiled as she said, "Your Majesty, what business do you have with me?" As the leader of one of the three major intelligence organizations, Yi Chuye's authority in Qin City was quite high. Apart from collecting intelligence, the White Sect's purpose was to develop their organization and lure others to join them. Zhao Fu looked at Yi Chuye and smiled as he said, "The White Sect should have many people in the alliance, right?" Yi Chuye smiled as she replied, "With Qin City's support, the White Sect has developed very quickly. Now there are 3 million people in the alliance, and they are spread throughout the alliance." Zhao Fu said, "I'll give you some philosopher's stones and have the White Sect's people sell them in the alliance. They have to be discreet and try not to be discovered." Yi Chuye flirtatiously smiled as she said, "I understand. Also, Your Majesty, it's been a while since you've spent the night at our place. The Holy Daughters and I greatly miss you. How about you come to our place tonight?" Now that Yi Chuye was the White Sect's sect master, she had chosen 6 beautiful and talented people to be holy daughters. Adding on her 4 female attendants, they would serve Zhao Fu together. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "After you're done, I'll reward you well." Yi Chuye's face became slightly red as she gave a moving smile. Within her mind, images of her being violated by Zhao Fu appeared. Your Majesty, I'll be going now. Then I'll go down first. I'll definitely complete your request. Following this, Yi Chuye gave the Philosopher's Stones to her subordinates and had the white sex people secretly sell them. They did not sell them themselves, as the chances of them being discovered were too high. Instead, they gave them to others or placed them in auctions or shop. Ordinary people were unable to resist the temptation of the Philosopher's Stone. Hearing that there were Philosopher's Stones for sale, they immediately ran to buy them and use them. They did not think too much about it, as they knew what the Philosopher's Stone was from. Most importantly, after fusing with the Philosopher's Stone, they felt the immense power within their bodies and felt as if they could use alchemy power. Everything was just as they had heard. This caused countless people to become incredibly excited, and no one had any misgivings. After personally witnessing the Philosopher's Stone's might, they all rushed to buy it. In fact, some people in the Alliance also wanted to obtain the Philosopher's Stone. However, they couldn't ask Qin for it. Hearing that someone from their own faction was selling the Philosopher's Stone, the various alliances split into two groups. The first method was to prohibit the sale of the Philosopher's Stone within one's own faction. If anyone dared to use the Philosopher's Stone, they would be killed. The Philosopher's Stone belonged to Qin. They were worried that they would fall into Qin's trap. On the other hand, they didn't like Qin very much and hated Qin, so they wouldn't use Qin's things. The second method was to find out who was selling the Philosopher's Stone. They wanted to obtain more Philosopher's Stones to use and strengthen their own forces. This was especially so when they were in a dangerous situation. For the sake of obtaining great power, they would do anything. The Alliance realized the seriousness of the matter and immediately gathered everyone for a discussion. What's wrong with you guys? This is Qin's Philosopher's Stone. Aren't you afraid of falling into Qin's trap if you use it? Why are you people so stupid? That's right. When I heard that someone actually used the Philosopher's Stone, I exploded with anger. Weren't we supposed to unite to resist Qin? How can we use Qin's things? Right now, we must strictly prohibit the Philosopher's Stone. We can't let anyone use it. This will destroy our alliance. Yes. I also support this decision. On one side, we are resisting Qin. On the other side, we are using Qin's things. I don't have such thick skin. That's right. The Philosopher's Stone is very powerful, but I won't be so thick-skinned as to use it. Can't you guys have some dignity? You don't want anything just for some benefit. Some of the small factions that desperately wanted to increase their strength, increase their authority, and increase their safety were naturally very dissatisfied. These small factions didn't have much power and could be destroyed at any time. They didn't even have any authority in the alliance, nor did they have any sense of security. They could be abandoned at any time. This was why they wanted to increase their strength. The Philosopher's Stone was something that could increase their strength, so they definitely had to use it. Some of the people who were related to Qin faintly felt that this matter was related to Qin. However, this was also very beneficial to them. If everyone used the Philosopher's Stone, then they would also use it without being suspected. This way, not only could they increase their strength, but they could also leave a way out for themselves. They wouldn't be affected in the alliance. They immediately opened their mouths to refute. I don't think there's a problem with using the Philosopher's Stone. It's not just me who checked it carefully. The other factions also checked it carefully before using it. Do you think everyone is so stupid? They didn't check if there's a problem before using it? That's right. There's no problem with the Philosopher's Stone. Every faction has checked it. Everyone can rest assured about this. Yes. I also support this view. Although this thing belongs to Qin, it's fine as long as it's beneficial to us. I don't think there's a problem with using Qin's things to attack Qin. That's right. Do you think dignity and face are useful? Can they resist the enemy? Can they be eaten? I feel that it's fine as long as it can increase our strength. I oppose the restriction of the Philosopher's Stone. I also oppose the restriction of the Philosopher's Stone. Are you big factions going to let us small factions survive? If you want to restrict the Philosopher's Stone, then please give us something that can increase our strength. We definitely won't have any objections. That's right. As long as you give us something that can increase our strength or guarantee our safety, we'll listen to you. However, can you do it? It was clear that the big factions had fewer people at the meeting, while the other mid-sized factions and small factions had more people. Facing their rebuttal, the big factions' people's expressions were somewhat unsightly. If there were only a few of them, they wouldn't care at all. They could just kill anyone who didn't submit. However, there was a large group of them, and they didn't dare to attack them. Originally, they had thought that they could suppress this matter. However, they had never thought that these people would resist so intensely. They did not know what to do next, and it was impossible for them to restrict the Philosopher's Stone. Some people immediately tried to mediate. We all said that we should be united. How could we cause such a ruckus because of the Philosopher's Stone? Can't we discuss this properly? If the alliance collapses, who do you think can stop Qin, Devilhorn, and Wingod? Hearing this, both sides calmed down. Chapter 2340. Those who chose to use the Philosopher's Stone said, "In any case, we will definitely use the Philosopher's Stone. Whether you use it or not is up to you. We won't interfere with each other, and even if there are any problems, it will be our own problem." Those who opposed using the Philosopher's Stone said angrily, "We are a group. If something happens to you, it will affect us. Banning the Philosopher's Stone is for your own good." Those who used the Philosopher's Stone coldly laughed, saying, "For our own good? Will you give us something that can increase our strength? Will you guarantee our safety?" These words caused those who opposed using the Philosopher's Stone to be speechless. In the end, the Alliance did not ban the Philosopher's Stone. As for how to deal with the Philosopher's Stone, it was up to each side to decide. They could use it or ban it, but they could not affect the people of other regions. Even though some large factions were dissatisfied with this result, they could not do anything and could only accept it. The other factions revealed victorious smiles. They could use the Philosopher's Stone without any worries to increase their strength. This was especially so for those who had connections with Great Qin. They were incredibly happy. Great Qin had given them 100 million Philosopher's Stones, which would greatly increase their factions. However, they would not be so foolish as to use all of the Philosopher's Stones at once. There were simply too many of them, and no one in the market could obtain so many Philosopher's Stones. As such, it would still arouse suspicion. They planned to use them in batches to not arouse suspicion and increase their strength. After hearing about this, Zhao Fu gave a satisfied smile, but he did not take the next step. This matter would take some time, and he could not be too hasty. Great Qin had many things to do. A bright moon hung in the night sky. There were not many stars in the surroundings, and the moon gave off boundless moonlight, illuminating the ground. Zhao Fu arrived at the White Church's palace. Yi Qiuye and the other women were already waiting there. As soon as Zhao Fu entered, they took off their clothes and leapt into Zhao Fu's embrace. Intense sounds continuously sounded out from the room. When Zhao Fu did it with Mei Xiaoyan from behind, Mei Xiaoyan had a look of enjoyment on her face. She even said, "Your Majesty, your cousin still hasn't given up on me. Your cousin still hasn't given up on me and keeps pestering me. What should I do? He said that he had always loved me and wanted me to help him find a position." Mei Xiaoyan used to be Zhao Fu's cousin's girlfriend. She had merely used Zhao Fu's cousin to get close to Zhao Fu. She represented the White Lotus Society and wanted to cooperate with Zhao Fu. Now that the matter had passed for a long time, the White Lotus Society had changed its name to the White Society. As for his uncle and aunt's family, Zhao Fu didn't pay much attention to them. At this time, hearing the news from Mei Xiaoyan, he was a little surprised. Although Zhao Fu didn't like them, he gave them a courtyard and some money so that they could live a normal life. As Zhao Fu violated Mei Xiaoyan, he asked, "How are they now?" After all, they were his family, so Zhao Fu couldn't help but care about them. This was something that Zhao Fu couldn't give up, so he asked. Mei Xiaoyan looked at Zhao Fu flirtatiously and said, "Your Majesty, your cousin has accepted his current life and married an ordinary woman. They even gave birth to a 2-year-old boy called Zhao Feihu. The two of them work at a restaurant, which is owned by your cousin's ex-girlfriend, Zheng Jiao. That bitch was so lewd under your Majesty, but she still has a place for your cousin in her heart. Your Majesty, you must punish her." Zheng Jiao, who was lying on the bed with a red face and panting, was given a big fright and quickly leapt into Zhao Fu's embrace, saying, "Your Majesty, my heart is filled with you. Right now, my heart is filled with you. I'm doing this because your cousin helped me back then. That's why I'm helping both of you." Zhao Fu lightly nodded and did not pay too much mind to this. In the past, Zheng Jiao and his cousin had been in love, but Zheng Jiao had chosen to leave his cousin in the end and had used all sorts of methods to become Zhao Fu's woman. His cousin was a decent person, and he felt that it was good for him to live an ordinary person's life. Mei Xiaoyan had seen how intense Zhao Fu had been when he had ravaged Zheng Jiao, and she couldn't help but feel quite jealous. She had wanted to make Zheng Jiao behave herself and trick her, but Zhao Fu didn't mind at all. Mei Xiaoyan didn't dare to continue talking about this because it was indeed nothing. His cousin and his wife didn't know that Zheng Jiao had opened the restaurant, and Zheng Jiao hadn't met them. Following this, Mei Xiaoyan continued to talk about other people. "Even though your cousin has accepted his current life, your uncle and auntie's younger cousin can't accept it. They believe that you're the ruler of Qin City and that they're your only family. They should be high and mighty, enjoying great power and wealth. They've been asking the local officials to do whatever they want, but His Majesty has given orders, so the officials have ignored them. However, they've been arguing the entire time. Your cousin has also asked me for an official position and said that he doesn't care if I do it with His Majesty and that he's willing to take care of me for the rest of my life. However, how could I care about him? I'm His Majesty's woman, and everything belongs to His Majesty." Hearing about this, Zhao Fu felt a slight headache. This was why Zhao Fu hadn't paid attention to their news. Zheng Jiao understood that Zhao Fu felt quite uncomfortable, so she wrapped her arms around Zhao Fu's neck and said seductively, "Your Majesty, don't think too much about these things. Let us properly serve you and help you relax." Following this, Zheng Jiao's lewd voice sounded out. The next morning, Zhao Fu came out of his room and wanted to head to the palace, but he suddenly remembered something and immediately headed to the Heaven Spirit Pavilion. Before, Zhao Fu had said that he needed to collect information about the celestial world above and the celestial world below and borrow their power to strengthen the three realms. However, he had been too busy and had forgotten about this. Now, Zhao Fu directly went there and searched for information about the celestial world. However, he found that there was not much information about the celestial world. As for how to absorb the celestial world's power, it was mentioned here. The half-celestial world was a small space between the heaven-awakened world and the celestial world. The two worlds would clash, creating cracks and gaps, and countless traces of celestial qi would flow into those small spaces. The small spaces had been baptized by celestial qi for countless years, and their laws and source energies had changed, which was why they had become the half-celestial world. In other words, if he wanted to absorb the celestial world's power, he had to find cracks and gaps in the celestial world and draw celestial qi into the three realms. Zhao Fu felt that this would be quite difficult. Normally, cracks and gaps in the celestial world would form a half-celestial world, so Qin had to find a half-celestial world. However, the half-celestial world was a place where Saint-class factions resided. If Qin accidentally found a Saint-class faction, wouldn't he be seeking death? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.